Ready? Okay. Good morning. This meeting of the Berry County Commissioners Committee of the Whole is called to order for January 17th, 2023. We have a rather full agenda today with several interviews, in addition to a full schedule of some other things to work through. So I anticipate this meeting being somewhere between 2 to 3 hours. So if you are an interviewee and after your interview, if you would like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you are certainly invited to do so. But you are also, if you would like to leave after the interview, that's fine. We typically discuss the interviews at the end of our meeting after we get through our agenda, and then we'll make a decision on the candidate from there. So please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Dahlke, and I live at 12275 Island View on Pine Lake. And I am here just to let you know that I know that there's been Mr. Hanley who has come before the board and spoke as if he is, thank you, spoke as if he is representing all of us, and I just want you to know that that's not true. I have some photos I'd like to share. May I bring them to the board?
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. No problem.
So the first two photos are of our yard before we actually put 3 pumps in. The next photo is a picture of the road that flooded, our road. The fourth picture is when it iced over. And at that time, there were problems with, we had a service vehicle that came through and actually had to be towed out. He was not able to get over the ice dam that had developed by that time. And we live on Island View is a dead-end road, and there are 7 houses past us that you really couldn't get any emergency vehicles down. Had there been an emergency medically or fire or something, they wouldn't have gotten down there. The last picture is a picture of our driveway, and there was a time where we had to park 4 houses down and walk through the ice. That chunky ice, we were concerned it would do something to our cars. We had a neighbor that actually put a hole in his gas tank trying to drive through there. So it was a real problem. There was an appeals court ruling of '98 that states that the normal lake level of the water of an inland lake provide the most benefit to the public, that best promote or protect the public health, safety, and welfare, that best preserve the natural resources of the state, and that best preserve and protect the value of property around the lake. This court order cannot be adhered to without a lake level management system. So I'd like you to keep that in mind when this comes before you again. I know it's been tabled for now for a bit, but when it comes before you, I'd like to keep these things in mind. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Ken.
My name is Ken Kirsch. I live at 2717 Chippewa Trail in Rutland Charter Township. And I know this morning that, I guess I'm kind of making a lot of noise there. The commissioners are filling a position for the road commission. And I know that you guys take that position very serious. And I'm here strictly on my own to support and endorse, I feel, Jim James for this position. Jim's an absolutely outstanding individual. He's an outstanding person in the community. I've known him for 23 years. He's worked with the Road Commission in his landscaping business. He's worked with the Road Commission as the superintendent for the city of Hastings for the buildings and grounds. He's experienced, he's compassionate, he's sat on many, many boards in the county to support the county, and I highly endorse Jim for this open position for the Road Commission, and I just wanted to take that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment?
Larry Bass, Carlton Township. This is actually a point of inquiry. I noticed you don't have an invocation on today's agenda. And looking back at BOC, it seems to be quite prevalent. And so I'd like to know why, eventually, during this meeting, if it was an oversight or what. Or we've listened to one of our commissioners who wanted it removed from the agenda. Thank you very much. There's a lot of us that would like to see that continued. Thank you.
Additional public comment?
Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. Sorry, I don't normally appear like this, but I just got done checking cattle, so. On the comment, or on the public participation for the agenda, I've gone through numerous sets of bylaws, extensive research, multiple counties, municipalities, so forth. And out of everything, I think Berry County really has the best, most comprehensive set of bylaws to take into consideration the public's right to input. And one thing that, even though I rarely utilize it because I realize it is a luxury, I try to make sure I only use it when I believe that I have something to add legitimate. The public participation where we are allowed to speak on an agenda item before a vote. You don't see that anywhere else. And that gives us a chance, for example, if you have a 37-item agenda and only 3 minutes of public comment, you don't have the option to speak to all 37 items legitimately before you start, or before you get to that item. So it's an excellent opportunity for the public to give input, and I wish to keep it there. As far as the end public comment, I know that there are a couple commissioners that wish to see that perhaps gone. I believe that's an excellent point where people, for example, when Rick Moore comes up and says, hey, this is going on at Charlton Park this week, when Sharon Zabrowski comes up and says, hey, these are the activities going on in the COA, it's an excellent way to recap everything. And so I thank the board for the rules that we have, and I hope that we can continue to keep them that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning. Before I get started, I had some people come up to me last week and ask if they can get copies of what I spoke on. And I do have copies here. If anybody would like a set of those copies, please see me afterwards, and I will give them to you. Cindy Twitchell, and that's CYNDI-TWICHELL from Prairieville Township. Good morning. I want to first reiterate what Larry Bass said. I am very disappointed that there was no invocation this morning to start our meeting off. And I would like to start with a quote from George Bancroft, known as the father of American history. The selfishness of evil defeats itself, and God rules in the affairs of men. You guys are going to be interviewing people for important positions. I do firmly believe that you need to rely on God for the wisdom of who you are going to be putting in those positions. Our Constitution's preamble begins with, "We the people of the United States." America was established to operate by the approval of we the people. The government is dependent on we the people. Government will be good when we the people are intelligent and virtuous. Government will be bad when we the people are uninformed and selfish. We the people are the stewards of this great nation. We the people must learn at least the basics of government in order to be good stewards. Our country is imploding on itself because we, the people, do not understand our government's origin, natures, or principles. When we, the people, are not involved in government, we have only ourselves to blame for our frustration regarding the wastefulness, corruption, self-centeredness, greed, and scheming of our government. When we, the people, understand our nation's origin and nature, we, the people, will choose representatives that will pass laws and are a source of good rather than evil. Our forefathers understood that in order for a nation to survive and prosper, it had to rely on God for all their decision-making. The building blocks of society, laws, and liberty are key to a successful nation. What is a society? Noah Webster Dictionary defines a society as a voluntary association of individuals for common ends. Common sense should tell us that whatever and wherever people join together in any society, that no one has the right to do whatever they wish. Whenever someone in society rejects and ignores the other members of society, those actions will invariably bring some level of harm to the rest of society. That is why civil government is necessary. The object of civil government is to protect the rights of each of its members from the encroachment by others in the society and by government itself.
Cindy, your 3 minutes have expired. Could you summarize your comments?
In other words, to protect the maximum amount of liberty with the least amount of restrictions and burdens. To be continued.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Ellen Schaumbarger, Carlton Township. When I heard comments made from this commissioner's room last week, I was absolutely disturbed, thinking, now, just like all the other parts of the government, try to restrict people's religious freedom. And it really upsets me to think one person, just like a rotten apple in a barrel, can ruin the whole barrel. And the next thing you know, with this restriction or completely done away with prayer, next thing they're going to want to do away with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag because it's got the word God in it. How long before the commissioners not allow prayer, and then pretty soon the Pledge of Allegiance is gone because it's got the word God in it. And so I have a real issue with all the restrictions. This includes, not limited to, per diems that like was asked for. The commissioner asked for the time to be changed, no second public comment. And the people are the one who elected him. And I can't believe these people who would elect somebody like that and disregard everybody else's rights in the process. And I feel that this is a slap to the rest of us law-abiding and religious people who believe in God. And I guess if the man doesn't believe in God, then he can just ignore it. That's his right to do what he needs to do, but what about the majority? And, and it also says, no person in the Michigan Constitution under equal protection of discrimination. It says no person shall be denied the equal protection of the laws, nor shall any person be denied the enjoyment of his civil or political rights or be discriminated against in the exercise thereof because of religion, race, color, or national origin. The legislature shall implement this section by appropriate legislation. So I would ask that the comment by this commissioner, and he knows who he is, and everybody else does too, to take that in consideration, because you don't believe one way or the other. Everybody may have a different belief, but don't put your belief off on somebody else.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Pat Jameson, South Bones Mills. On my way over here, I seen they finally getting a shooting range going. That's cool. I like that. What I don't like about Berry County is that we have been activated as a blue zone. A lot of the things that they're doing right now, I don't agree with. They want you to eat 95 to 100% plant-based food. That's their plan. Eat beans. Another thing, they have this safe routes to school stuff. They actually have a plan. They can pick my kid up at my house. Don't take them directly to school. They'll drop them off in a remote area so they can walk the rest of the way to school. I, for one, am not going to put up with that. I don't like it. Not safe for the kids. Don't like it. Another thing, coming up here in a little bit, you guys are interviewing for the Central Dispatch Authority. There's a person on there that I don't think fits it very well. They were part of our school board. They quit that when things got tough. They like meddling and everything. And if you're not sure who that is, sitting right over there next to the dispatcher.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment?
Hello, Adam Heichel, a local business owner. It's been a while. Been busy on Tuesday mornings, so I have not been able to address you guys over the last couple of months, but should be here every other week again going forward. So nice to see some new faces, so old and new faces, right? Now, I, as you guys know, as I've said before, I speak to many boards in many locations, and there's a good point that Joel said that, some of the activities that you guys do here are unique and should be done at more locations, and they should not change. We've been asking, the people have been asking for greater transparency, for greater participation, ability to participate, for feedback, for back and forth, for time in this meeting, for our voice out here to be heard, so that your decisions, we know, are being made based on our voice being heard and not outside voices, as I've been describing to you, which I still want to know if any one of you that have been here before have actually looked up the Gamaliel Foundation, understood what that is. None of you have reached out to me once yet.
Isn't that Paul's teacher,
The,
Gamaliel?
well, I don't know if I'm supposed to be interrupted during this. But since he wasn't on the board and he's the one that's trying to change things and silence people to make voices, I don't doubt the fact that he needs to look at the Gamaliel Foundation and the ways of outside forces that have been controlling things, manipulating things, reaching into your mind and making you think that this is the way things should be done when they shouldn't, because what we have is a tyrannical system of governance that has been implemented over many generations here now, decades of people slowly changing the way that things function. And now we're to the point where we are now getting our voices stripped. We have new people coming onto the board and trying to say to limit our time to speak, which is mind-boggling. When you guys have been taking better strides than anywhere else I've seen and increasing. Like he said, when you have an item that you're going to be voting on, and you guys given the people an opportunity to speak before you vote, that is huge. That is powerful. That is something you all should be taking and going, wow, this is unique and a good thing, okay? Not something you should be removing in any way, shape, or form. The fact that you would want to reduce the comment times, I mean, all of that it just shows, that, again, that you all feel that you are all here to do work and we're simply just here to observe you. When Article 1, Section 3 of the Michigan Constitution tells us here in the audience, it's our duty to instruct you. So you all took an oath to that Constitution, I do believe, right? To the Michigan Constitution and the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 3. Look it up. Understand it. I'll quote it as my closing here. It's we have the right peaceably to assemble, to consult for the common good, to instruct you, our supposed representatives, and to redress you for grievances that we might have with you, right? So remember that it is our duty to instruct you and that you're to listen. You're to listen to the people. That's where you get it from. Here, not from people outside without organizations that have power. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. Interviews for road commissioners, for Berry County Road Commissioners. Commissioners, in your packet, you all had the resumes for the 6 candidates that were applying. I would ask that you take notes as we listen to the interviews. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions as well. And then at the end of our meeting today, we will have discussion and make a decision on which way you want to go. So, any questions from commissioners before we get started? I'll explain the voting process at the end of the meeting when we get to that point. So, first up for our interview is Mark Bonsignor. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm well. Yourself?
You've been a familiar face around the commission for a while, so I have your application. Would you take a minute and explain or tell us why you would like to be a road commissioner, what your vision is?
Certainly.
And a little bit about your background, please.
My background, I realize that my application doesn't actually pertain to the road commission, but I've lived in Berry County for 51 years and 2 days. Changed my life when I moved here. My wife and I live on Bear Lake.
Would you move a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
My wife and I live on Fair Lake in a house that I designed and built. I've been a builder, carpenter, basically, most of the time that I've lived here in Berry County. And as far as my qualifications for being on the Road Commission, it rests on the fact for the last 4.5 years, going on 5 now, I've attended probably 75% of the Road Commission meetings. So I wouldn't claim to be on top of all the issues that come before them, but I do have a background at this point in understanding, kind of what's going on. And the main thing I know I've learned is that there's a lot to learn. I would in no way, shape, or form be contemplating doing this job if it weren't for the fact that I've seen Dave Soames and Frank Fiala working for years now, and I know they'll be there to mentor me, and I've observed that now the transition that's taking place from Brad Lamberg to Jake Welch. I was there for the interviews on all those people, and I've been a fan of Jake's ever since I met him. So I'm looking forward, I would look forward to being an actual member of the commission rather than just an observer, though.
Awesome. Couple questions for you starting out. What do you see as your role as a road commissioner?
Well, one of the recurring themes that comes up is the role of the commissioners, and it's important as a new commissioner to realize that basically we have only one employee, and that is the managing director, and the commissioners should stay out of personnel matters and that sort of. The day-to-day running of the business is not up to us. We are policymakers and supervisors rather than managers. So.
Okay. Next question. What problems do you see with the Berry County Road Commission, and what would you fix?
Boy, that's I would have a hard time putting my finger on any problem that I've seen so far. It's a very, one of the reasons I would put myself forward is it's an opportunity to be part of an incredible organization. That we have the best roads in the state, and being a part of a team like that an opportunity doesn't come along very often like that. As far as a specific problem, the last meeting I was at the meeting this morning, but on the 30th we had the wrap-up meeting for the year, and Chris uttered some words that struck terror into my heart, which is that she's planning to retire in 4 years. And if there is ever a linchpin of an organization, it's Chris. So I would see that we need to put in place some kind of a conveyor to get someone moving up toward that position when she does retire, because she's absolutely critical to the operation.
Excellent. Questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Hatfield.
You just asked the three that I intended to ask.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner Campbell?
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mark for a while, so, about 50 years, Mark? Yeah. He's a fine person. He's a great person. I know that, I hope that regardless of how this goes today, if it doesn't go in that direction, I know that you have lots of interest in other areas also. And I just like to always tell everybody that's up there, it's nice to see somebody that wants to get involved, and we will find a place. That's all I have.
Commissioner Tennyson?
Absolutely. I want to reiterate that same statement that I appreciate the fact you're here every day, and I saw you at the mental health board the other day. And I think you show a lot of interest in the community, and I appreciate you being up for this position. So thanks, Mark.
Commissioner Smelker?
My questions have, my questions have already been asked, but thank you very much for applying.
Pleasure.
Commissioner Getty?
I particularly appreciate you attending so many road commission meetings and to familiarize yourself, because that's often one of my questions for candidates on boards is how many meetings, you have attended to learn what the business is. And I think you answered my question also about why you want to be a commissioner, giving back to your community, so I appreciate that.
Commissioner Colton?
It's always exciting to see someone get involved. I see you've applied also for mental health. You got a lot of qualifications for that. Between the two, if you could have one or the other, would you prefer the road commissioner or the mental health board?
Can I be agnostic on that? I really hadn't thought about it. Boy, I really can't answer that question. I really haven't thought about it. I can't give you a good answer on that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster?
I have nothing further.
Thank you. I have no further questions either. Mark, we appreciate your application. You've been a friendly face around the commission for a while, so thank you.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Next up on our interview list, Philip Corson.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. If you would, again, we know your name, but give us a little bit of background on yourself and why you would like to be a road commissioner.
So I am 37 years old, lived in Berry County my whole life. I've worked in construction since I was 10 years old, working for my Uncle Rob, pouring walls, working with my grandpa, building subdivisions at Dan Valley Excavating. And then when he closed his doors, I went on my own and started my own business. And, following the same path as kind of what he did, but not growing. Like, I never wanted to grow my business more than just me and maybe one guy. I've built roads, I make aggregate materials, I've educated myself on different types of aggregate materials, 21AA, 22A, 23A. I've always been around construction and equipment and working with people and working for the common goal and trying to be a great person. Did you ask why I'd be a good candidate too?
Yeah, why you want to be a road commissioner.
Okay, so then, following in Dave Dykstra's kind of behind him, whatever, I've always admired my grandfather. And when I heard that he wasn't going to re-enlist to try to be back on the commissioner board, it's something that's always interested me. At multiple times in my life, I've thought about applying for the road commission, but I couldn't because I had a family member that was on the commissioner board. So when he resigned, you know, I know Brad Lambert. I've done work. I've helped clear the roads of my loader when the ice storm hit 5 years ago or whatever. And I think Brad and now Jake taking over, I think they've done a phenomenal job. I think the men and women that work for the road commission do a phenomenal job taking care of the roads and really having a lot of, sorry, I'm nervous.
No, breathe.
You know, they
relax.
take a lot of, trying to think of the word.
You're
They
fine.
really care about our roads. And I know Jake's always said, you know, how we have the best roads, and I can see it. You know, me being a gravel hauler, they have some stuff coming up here, I foresee in the next 5 years, that could be some issues. And, you know, with the people you have in place, and I feel with the knowledge that I have and the insight that I can see, I would be a huge asset. With the new gravel pits going south towards Delton, and we got Stone Co., we have Superior Asphalt, high grade. You know, I believe Yankee Springs has never been truly paved. It's been layered with sealer, and, you know, that's something that's gonna have to be addressed someday with all those trains going down the road. And I think I can be a big asset to that and help and plan for stuff like that as we move towards the future and keep helping all the townships build plans to maintain their roads. So,
Okay. Same question. What do you see as your role as a road commissioner?
my role would be to help fill that void where Dave has left. I want to be a great team player. I want to give my insight. You know, I'm very good with budgets. I'm very good with equipment and what them guys would need to be able to fulfill their duties on a daily basis. I think with the difficulties of COVID and nowadays with being able to get parts, you know, maybe not always getting the cheapest thing out there when they're replacing equipment or trying to move ahead. It's buying the right piece of equipment to do the job, being able to get the parts to repair that piece of equipment so we can keep doing the job when stuff happens. And I think I would be a big asset to that. And
Okay. What problems do you see? What problems would you want to fix at the Berry County Road Commission going forward?
I kind of said I foresee like some of the battles we're going to have with keeping up with the big semis and stuff, you know. But as far as addressing anything like problems I see at the Road Commission, like I think they do a great job. I think they're always thinking about the people. Anytime there's an issue, I know in my past I've always tried to let Brad know or somebody know that, hey, there's a big pothole in a gravel road where a truck broke through. That could be a liability of concern for safety. You know, them guys do a phenomenal job. And they get right out there and fix it. And, you know, just seeing how they react makes me want to be part of being on the commissioner board.
Awesome, thank you. Vice Chair Hatfield.
What other boards have you served on?
I've never served on a board. This is my first time trying.
No other questions?
No other
Commissioner
questions?
Campbell.
Obviously, thank you for showing up here today and wanting to be a part of the county family that we have here. And seeing you have not been on other boards yet or anything, do you have any desire to be on any other boards if this one did not work out?
Possibly, yeah. You know, this is the first time I've ever really looked into anything. And, you know, it's fascinating to me. There is, but I'd have to see what comes up and I'd have to see because I do think it's important, you know, seeing what you guys all do and I think being a voice for Berry County where I've always lived and being able to be part of fixing problems or foreseeing problems and trying to fix that area before it even becomes a problem. You know, like I applaud everybody and it's, yeah.
obviously you have some nice experience there and everything, so thank you so much for coming out here today.
Commissioner Tennyson.
Well, you put me in the spot, and I've known this kid ever since he's pretty tall now, let's put it that way. But with you growing up with your family, and your grandfather was probably one of the greatest men I've ever been encountered in my life, as far as his leadership, his giving spirit, and I know that with your family, you're the same type character, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
What other life skills do you think you could bring to that board, though, Phil?
Life skills,
As far as leadership-wise, stuff like that.
well, I'm not afraid of denial, you know? I'm not afraid of maybe coming up with an idea, and maybe everyone's against it, and that's okay. You know, that's why there's boards, and that's why there's vote. And, you know, I have very thick skin. I can accept that I don't know everything, and I'm okay with asking questions and learning from other people. You know, in my business, I work by myself a lot with another guy, and I'm not afraid to ask, you say competition, but I don't look as any experts as my competition. I say we're all in this together. We try to figure out or help each other, because at the end of the day, we're just all trying to be successful and be good for our families. And with the county, it's taking care of the big family of Berry County. And I think that's a life skill that I have. I have no ego. So I think that goes a long ways, and I'm very humble. I think people appreciate that, and I'm genuine. So.
Thanks. I appreciate you coming today.
Thanks.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing further.
Commissioner Colton.
This is a little off topic because the road commission does county roads.
Yep.
But when I was in state government, there was constant bickering of fixing the roads. You know, the governor says, fix the damn roads.
Right.
So what you've seen on the state roads, do you have any thoughts on how they're doing it?
So how they're fixing the state roads?
Yeah, how they're doing it.
As far as like what, like,
Yeah, you-
in front of Kmart, they're pouring concrete. You know, on other state roads, they have it actually thicker, they're Class A roads. You know, they might be doing 6 to 8 inches of asphalt. You know, on our county roads, they're typically 4 inches probably, 3 to 4 inches. I know we do a great job in Berry County with our chip seal, and that seems to really help our roads, add that stone and strength to our roads to keep them from blowing up and popping from our Michigan weathers. When we get the warm, cold thaw, and then it freezes, and then it thaws back out. And, you know, I think the state doesn't do that type of stuff. They're more, they pave it, it's like that. They do a little sealing in the cracks, and then, you know, in front of Kmart, obviously, they're cutting out concrete and replacing it. And, you know, I imagine that is a lot more costly on a state road than it is a county road, you know, 'cause we don't do that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Commissioner Getty.
Thank you for the interest in just putting your hat in the ring and being willing to serve your community.
Yes.
The road commission is a big commitment, and you have a full-time job. I know from personal experience, you're a busy guy. Do you have the time to be able to commit to this?
So, yes, I do. You know, I'm 37, and probably most people at 37, their kids are 10 years old. My son's 19, and my daughter's 17. She'll be graduating next year. I don't have all those obligations anymore of sporting events and stuff like that. And, you know, I've done my research, and like, I know a lot of their meetings are first Tuesday of every month in the mornings. And then I know towards the end of the year, they meet with townships. And anything I do, I commit 100%. So if I was awarded this position, I would make all the meetings, because that'd be my obligation.
Well, I can vouch for you that whatever you do, you give 100%, because that's been my personal experience. You have a good reputation. You're always easy to work with, and I've appreciated that.
Thank you, Catherine.
Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you for applying, Phil. And have you attended any meetings?
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your application, and we'll let you know.
All right.
Next on our interview list, Robert Dykstra.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
It's kind of ironic. My father is stepping off the road commission board, and I've just got to take my hat off because he was very instrumental to the board. And now I've got a nephew that's applying. I did not tell Phil that I was applying because I didn't want to defer him from applying for the job, you know. So until the agenda came out, we didn't know either one of us were applying for this job. But
Do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah.
And why you think you'd be a good fit for the road commission?
I just want to give you guys thanks for giving me the opportunity even to apply. And what I did is I grew up on a dairy farm. And at the young age of 17, I became married. And I've been married to the same gal for 43 years. At 22, we decided to leave the farm, and we bought our first bulldozer, digging basements and putting in drain fields and such. But at 24, I took my first road project, or my first street project, was Clinton Street, right here in the town of Hastings. And I really did not know what I was getting into. But luckily, a guy by the name of Mike Klavanich from the city of Hastings took me under his wing. And he coached me through that whole job. And most people at that time would have said, young man, go home. But not Mike Klavanich. He taught me, and I paid attention to him, and I learned what business was really all about. I made a $20 bill that year, and but the schooling I got was so much more valuable. Today, my wife and I, we have two businesses, Dykstra and Son Excavating and Creekside Growers. We employ up to 22 people, part seasonal, 5 full-time, but we believe when we hire somebody, we don't just take the employee, we take the family. We got to make sure of that. And then between my wife and I, we have to make our own budget. We have to know where our money's going. We got to know what we can spend. I mean, we don't have anything else behind us but what we bring in. And so I understand when it's time to buy new. I understand when it's time to fix, and I understand when you just got to say, hey, look, I've spent enough money on this old piece of equipment. And then being self-employed, I've stayed very focused on that part of it, you know, the business part of it. And I try to find the most effective ways that we can do things with the funds that we have. And we run about a $1 to $1.4 million business, which I know is nothing compared to the budget that the road commission has. But by being able to do that, I think it gives me the ability to help in the road commission. Safety to us is a very important thing. I stress to all my guys in the field, you know, you never put anyone in an unsafe situation. You work on these roads and stuff, the traffic is so thick. And you know, we don't ever, that's probably our biggest job. The work is easy, but the biggest part of the job is to keep them safe and keep them going back home. And but I've worked in several counties, cities, villages, seeing that Berry County is one of the finest to work with. They've done a great job keeping up their roads in great shape, and they've been able to put the right people in the right spot. And I feel that's very important. As a board member, I think you're not there to run the everyday business. You're there to make sure that, you know, you got the right people in the right position. And having worked in new and old infrastructure, bridge approaches, road building, dealing with the public, and setting on their boards, I just think I would be a great asset to the road commission. And it would be an honor to be able to be part of the commission that's going on today.
Thank you. Same question. What do you see as your role as a road commissioner?
Well, I feel as a road commissioner, like I say, it wouldn't be up to me to run the everyday business of it. As far as stepping on this guy's toes or that guy's toes, I think you've got to listen to your manager. I think you've got to oversee it. You've got to see the funds, the budget that comes in. You've got to be able to diversify that. You've got to step out. And I know it's not one person can do this. It has to be a equal board that can get along with one another. And that's what I would see as my part of it. You know.
Okay. What, having some road building experience and construction experience, I don't know how intimately you're connected to the road commission, but what problems do you see that you'd like to fix? What areas do you think that they could improve on going forward?
Well, I think Phil made a very good comment. You know, you only get gravel where gravel is. You can't put gravel in a certain area. It's only where the good Lord put it, that's where you're gonna find it. And I think that is an issue. Another thing is that what I would like to see is a lot more cross tubes that these farmers would be able to put a drag hose underneath to get rid of some of their manure and stop some of this tankers after tankers after tankers going down the shoulders of our roads. I think that really, I mean, with the Farm Act, they can run 365 days a year. When other ones are committed to the weight restrictions, they don't have that. And I'm not putting them down because I make my living with the farmers and I love them. But I just think there is some opportunity to be able to drag hose some of this stuff. I've got farmers in Ithaca, Hartford, they're pumping cow manure 7 miles to stay off the highway. And I just think that would be something to really look into to save the shoulders of our roads and save some of these roads.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Hatfield.
Thank you very much for applying. Nice to have you here. You mentioned that you have served on some other boards. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I served on the Berry County Fair Board for years. And then I was part of a church board. And then I belonged to the member of the MILICA, which is Michigan Land Clearers Association. And I do a lot of field tiling and things like that. So I sat on that board for a while. And the biggest thing with that is it gives us advantage that when you're in the wet conditions, the wetlands and things like that, we deal with Eagle all the time, which is formerly the DEQ. And they have lawyers and stuff that can coach you through these things. They are not allowed to draft a letter to the DEQ, but they can help you, assist you in drafting a letter, so that it looks like you are responding to them and not getting a lawyer to go after them. And that's been a big asset to my business right there. But sitting on those boards, I've always got along and realized that it's not just one person, but you also have to be able to listen to the public on what is going on too. You can't sit there stiff-minded and think my way's the right way, you know.
Thank you. No other questions?
Okay. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for taking the time out to come up here. I know you're probably a very busy man in that ownership and business. I would like to say I don't have any questions for you, but I would like to say you're more than qualified for this position, and that it's a problem for the commissioners when we've been blessed with so many good candidates today for only one position. But thank you so much for coming in.
Commissioner Tennyson.
There again, I've known you for 45 years, got utmost respect for you, and I appreciate you applying today. But your life skills that you could bring to this, you've been through every aspect of excavating, through everything else. You've seen the business side, you know equipment like the back of your hand, so you're absolutely qualified for this position. So.
Commissioner Smelker.
Same question. Hi, Rob. Have you attended any meetings with your dad?
Yeah, I've attended different meetings, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, I've attended meetings when I've come in there upset. There was a death on our road, a washboard road, that they went through a blade change, a blade operator change, and I think when they made the transition from one guy to the other, he forgot about that road. It was a complete washboard, and went down and picked a 19-year-old girl out of the ditch, dead up against a tree that night. And it was just a chatter bumps that she lost it and went off the road. She was going too fast. I mean, that's not, but yeah, I attended a meeting that morning too, and I was very, very upset that morning that this road could go on that way for months, and then we lost a life over the deal. But other than that, no, I've been to different meetings they've had, and I think the Berry County Road Commission does a great job. But, you know, sometimes in your emotions, but when you go through that and see this young girl, and the sad part was is she was one of our employees that left work that night. And it was pretty hard to go down there and see that and have to get a hold of her mom and dad, you know. So, but no, I have attended the meetings and I know through my father what does go on there.
Thank you. I'm done.
Commissioner Getty.
I appreciate you applying, like everyone else here. I mean, these are going to be hard decisions, but, you know, your involvement in the community and just your spirit of giving back has been evident in my tenure of knowing you. So thank you.
Commissioner Colton.
Okay, so you have a big company, 22 employees. How do you keep these good employees?
Well, like I say, part of them are seasonal. We have 5 full-time. Through our greenhouse business, a lot of that is seasonal. And we do hire some in the field seasonal. But what you do is you learn not to ask anything of anybody that you wouldn't do yourself. You treat them with respect. And just like I made the comment here earlier that when we hire somebody, we don't just hire that person. We're not just looking at that one person. We're figuring this person's here to feed their family. And so we make sure that we, as an employer, can take care of that person so that they can take care of their family. And if there is a family problem or something, we're the first ones to step out there and help them. We are going to have a little problem. We have people that have worked for us since day one, 25 years ago in the greenhouse business, but they're getting as old as my wife and they're going to retire. And I don't know where we're going to replace them. You know, you got dedicated people, but treat them with respect and get their respect and they'll continue to come back.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster.
You have a good-sized company, and so you probably have a large base of customers. How do you foresee, I mean, you're going to have to pick and choose projects that you'd have customers with opinions on. How would you deal with any potential conflict of interest?
Meaning opinions on what?
On what you should do, whether you keep them happy, whether it's buy their house, whether it's...
Well, number one, we do about $1 million in sales in our excavating and about 400 in our greenhouse. I only have 6 major customers in that $1 million. I specifically work for a township. I work for farmers. I take care of all Steelcase's land. I take care of Amway's land. We don't do the residential work. I don't have all these people. We just finished up a $500,000 project for the Thornapple Township with their sewer project. So our dollars come in larger amounts. It's not like I have 100 different places I have to be. I have a son that is 28 years old now that is into the business with me, and what I would really like to do is step back and do something a little bit different and let him now lead the reins a little bit in our company, and that's why I'm up here.
Is Thornapple then the township that you referred to that you have
Yes.
business with?
Yeah.
Do you think of this job as more of a being that the candidate should know more about the nitty-gritty of building roads or administration?
Well, I don't feel that I have the degrees that some people have coming up here. I have the common sense part of it. I have had to learn this, and yes, you need to know the business part of it. But I don't feel it's my job to build the road. But I feel that it is my job to try to help assist with some ideas on how we can do this, what we can do. Like I say, I get around a lot of counties. And if you followed us into some of these county places, you'd shake your head and say, how did you people get to where you're at? Berry County is one of the finest, from walking in the office to walking out in the field. Their employees must be treated awful well because they're great to work with. You have a question. I've walked in too many offices in these counties or villages, and you can't even get nobody to even look at you. They won't pick their head up off the desk. Where you walk into a friendly face, like I say, they did a great job of keeping the right people in the right spot.
I have nothing further.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Next up on our interview schedule, Mr. Jim James. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Yeah, if you'd give us a little bit about your background and why you see yourself being a good fit for the Road Commission.
My name is Jim James. My wife Tammy and I reside in Rutland Township. I've been a lifelong member of Berry County. My passion for serving our community started back in 1987 when I was summer help for the Berry County Road Commission. At that time, it was interesting to see the activities that were taking part. My mother was also involved with township government and county government and had served, and she had made it a family event and made the importance of serving our community a family event. From there on, left high school, short college stint, then entered the work world. Multiple facets, self-employed with a company my wife and I owned, Artisan Outdoor. Was the superintendent at the city of Hastings for 6 years, and now I reside at Thornapple Manor as facilities director. Through this course of action of raising a family and being a part of this community, my eyes were always open to where I could serve our community, where I could grow as a person, where I could give, and where I could give my skills that were best suited. With that, I do have a reputation of making the right decisions or not afraid to make a decision versus going for the popular decision. I understand the responsibility of the job that I am applying for, and I understand that the current commitments I have in our community. In short, I'm involved with the Berry County YMCA. I'm on the board of directors. I'm on the executive board of directors. I am on our endowment committee and our treasurer for our finance. I also am involved with Berry County leadership through the Berry County Community Foundation and have past served on the Berry County Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. With that, there's choices to make, and I know that, to balance my time. I have a full-time job at Thornapple Manor. We are 365 days a year, 24 hours, and you can ask any of my peers that they can see me 7 days a week or where needed. It is a priority to me to make time for my family and make time for my community. And I have no concerns of the time allotment that it'll take to fill this seat. I have the support of our administrator at Thornapple Manor, Becky DeHaan, and I have the support of my wife, Tammy James.
Thank you. First question, what do you see your role as a road commissioner?
The role I see myself is being an active listener, researching, not only getting the information that is presented to me at that time, but my own trust and verification of that information by doing my own research. I also see myself as being a large support team of the team that is currently there. I think the synopsis is they have an amazing thing going. I will answer the question also that my biggest concern moving forward, I do think that in life, in any business, sometimes it's a lot of work to get to the top. It's hard to stay there. And right now, the Berry County Road Commission is absolutely at the top of their game. The challenge that lays ahead of them is how do you continue the great works? That is my biggest concern for the Road Commission moving forward, is making sure that we have the right leadership support in that commissioner seat, therefore why I'm applying for it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hatfield.
I really have
I have no questions. You and I have worked together on a number of occasions. I appreciate your interest in serving your community and the manner in which you have served it, particularly when you were with the city. So thank you very much, and no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hatfield.
Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Jim.
Morning, Mr. Campbell.
I too have known Jim for a while, different areas, and I also know him through the Thornapple Manor. I work on the board over there. They always say great things about Jim. Beautiful facility over there, Jim. Nice job on that. This committees that you have been on, you're currently active with the YMCA. Is that the only one you're currently active with?
I'm currently active with the Berry County Leadership, Berry County also.
Oh, the leadership one too. And then, any conflict with those and taking on something like this road commission?
None that I have found.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for applying, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Commissioner Tunison.
There again, known you forever, appreciate the friendship we've always had, and I always want to commend you on what you have given back to this community. Because I've known you as a giver your whole life, and you've always wanted to try to step up and do what was needed, and you have. So, but your life skills that you could bring, your communication skills, everything that you have, you're well-rounded. What do you feel your strongest skills would be to bring to that board?
I truly feel my strongest skills that I have is that I am driven with compassion, and that I do have the ability to listen and take in what is being said, not necessarily how things are being said, but what is the content of being said, and digesting that and taking the personal time to make a decision and respond to that decision that it's at my hand.
Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing further.
Okay. Commissioner Colton.
Hi, Jim.
Hi,
I was
Mr.
just
Colton.
looking at this article on best and worst roads in Michigan from 2019 article, ranks Berry County #1. Do you know what it took to get there? Do you have any thoughts on what it took to get there?
Absolutely. Great allocations of funds. How the funding comes into the county is different than the road funding that comes into a municipality in a city. But again, I'd hand it to Mr. Lamberg and his team for taking great advantage in allocating those funds where needed. They are way ahead of the game of knowing what's in their pipeline. They're not looking at a product today and feeling a product that they're going down. They're looking at the Berry County roads as an intricate force for communication and safety for our entire county and people commuting within and out of our county. Those decisions come from the top, and they come from Brad with information that he researches with his peer and support from the current Berry County Board of Road Commissioners. And therefore, they are very successful.
Thanks, Jim.
Commissioner Getty.
You have extensive leadership experience. You're probably not unaware that you'll be put in a position of sometimes making difficult decisions. Can you give an example of how you have dealt with that and your other boards and leadership positions?
I think that an interesting thing is to be able to look as far down the road as you can. And it's kind of like getting on a bull. You're scared, you're afraid, but if you're in the rodeo and you want to win that buckle, you know you got to get on that bull. So you got to get beyond your own fears, and you got to get beyond your own emotions and realize that something greater in life is way bigger than you, but you do have a part of being a part of that. Being in the situation that I was at the city, not everyone is happy all the time. There's multiple situations, but I think the synopsis, not to just isolate one situation is to allow a resident to say what they need to say and not be involved in their emotion of how they're saying it. Let them vent. Let them know that what they say is important to you, and sincerely look them in the eye that it is important to you. Digest that, and then figure out what it is they really said, and not be afraid to give an answer right then. But have the courage to take information and say, could we get back and talk about this again? I've had that happen in countless situations that have actually ended up in great working relationships.
Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner Smelker.
No questions. Thank you for applying, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Getty.
We appreciate the interview, and we will let you know soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our interview schedule, Yuli Sala. Am I saying that first name right? You are. All right.
You got some training, huh?
Good morning. Good morning. But if you would be so kind as to give us a little bit of background on yourself and why you think you'd be a good fit for the road commission.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I realize I'm a new face to many of you, so I want to take a little bit of time just to talk about kind of my career, my personal life, some of the boards I've sat on, and then come back at the end and tie it all in and what that means in terms of being a Berry County Road Commissioner, and how those skill sets will lend themselves to this position. Hopefully, in my my summary here, I will have answered some of your questions that you've already asked. I have the luxury of having listened to those questions, so we'll just get right to it. I am a licensed civil engineer. I've been doing this for 12 years now. I work for Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick, an engineering architecture surveying firm in Shelby Township. The company was started by 3 previous Macomb County road commissioners, road commission employees. So road commission work and public service is just ingrained in the company and what we do as employees there too. I am a shareholder of the company. After a few years, I believe after 3 or 4 years working for AEW, they offered me shares into the company to become part owner of the company, which is a great opportunity. I am a senior project manager for the company. I plan, design, oversee construction of roads, parking lots, land development type projects, both from the very beginning of the project, conceptual planning, budgeting, all the way to the end to overseeing the construction, making sure it's constructed per the specs, and so on. I have staff that reports under me. I want to just touch on those things, and then I want to circle back to them as a Berry County Road Commissioner and the role and how those two are related, and not necessarily directly. I want to touch on a little bit of kind of my personal life, community involvement, just to give you guys a chance to get to know me a little bit more. I grew up on the east side of the state, southeast side in the suburbs of Detroit and Sterling Heights, Troy area. If you're familiar with it, it's a family of 5, 3 kids, 2 parents, obviously hardworking parents. We grew up in, to put it bluntly, in poverty. 2 parents working essentially minimum wage jobs to support 3 kids going through college. As you can imagine, not necessarily the easiest of situations. What that does, though, and the reason that I bring it up, is it allowed all of us to really get familiar with budgeting and using resources properly, and using resources and stretching them to as much as we can to get the most out of them. Fortunately, through a lot of hard work, dedication, some of the best education this country has to offer, a lot of support from community, from family, I'm now in a much better position, obviously, and I'm in a position where I can help. And I want to do that. Just as others have helped myself and others in my family, I want to be able to do that through to the communities that I belong in. So when we talk about helping a community, there's really 3 things we can give, right? Time, talent, treasure. We can give our time. If we have a specific talent, we can certainly give that. And obviously treasure, the simplest thing is just money, funds, whatever we can give. When I moved to Berry County, officially a little over a year ago, we bought a house in Delton there with my girlfriend. We had been dating for a few years before that, so I'm more and more familiar now with Berry County through a lot of trips out here. And clearly, Berry County has a lot of natural treasures that, as an outdoorsy person, I thoroughly enjoy and was one of the most appealing parts of moving here. So I want to ensure that those remain. I want to ensure that the infrastructure to those places also remains in good working condition. As I become more and more familiar with Berry County, I've more recently become a member of Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. I've attended some of their events, which have been great, and I want to get more involved there. If I can, donated to Charlton Park Millage campaign through the Friends of group there. I was glad to see that effort did not go in vain, and Charlton Park will be getting some much-needed park or funding to maintain and better that park. I volunteered for Gas and Steam Club at their pancake breakfast. Again, just trying to note of a few things that I want to get involved and give back to the community. A lot of it is time. I want to touch on some of the boards that I sit on, or one of the boards that I sit on and one that I have in the past. I am currently the Vice President of Utica Community Schools Foundation for Educational Excellence. It is primarily a fundraising foundation that supports the Utica Community School system, teachers and students, when additional funds are needed for a specific type of event that is outside of what the state will allow a school district to do. That district is the second largest district in the state with over, I believe, 24,000 to 25,000 students. So when you look at the overall community of that district alone, with parents, teachers, and families there, it probably gets the size of Berry County overall in population, over 60,000 there. In that foundation, I am, like I said, the vice president. I also sit on what we call the Career Focus Committee. I chair that committee. That committee is responsible for organizing the largest event that foundation does, which is gathering 2,000 sixth grade students over the span of 2 days, into a room, kind of a formal, semi-formal lunch with professionals to learn about different career opportunities. That event obviously requires a lot of planning, a lot of effort, a lot of organizing. In that foundation, we're also going through a strategic planning effort currently, a 5-year, possibly a 10-year strategic plan for the foundation. So there's a lot of planning at the high level that's happening there as well that I'm involved in. My role in that foundation is a little bit different than what I would consider most board members' role should be on a foundation of fundraising, primarily fundraising capacity. The foundation's a little understaffed, so we are, as board members, getting more and more involved on some of the details and doing some of the work, which is very different from what would be the task at the Road Commission. I've also sat on the boards, or the Board of Ordinance Appeals in City of Sterling Heights. I'm familiar with sitting on a board, familiar with Robert's Rule of Order and boardsmanship in general. Sterling Heights has 130,000 residents. I believe it's the fourth or possibly fifth largest municipality in Michigan. So certainly a lot of residents that would come in with either complaints or requests for ordinance, and you have to listen to those. As was mentioned earlier, validate their concerns. All concerns are real, or even perceived concerns are real. And listen through them and work within your guidelines and address that concern. Excuse me, and address that concern. But all within the guidelines and the role of that position. And we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. I also went through a Leadership Macomb program. I know Berry County also has a leadership program that I will be looking into a little bit more here in the upcoming near future. I'd like to learn more about it, possibly even join that program. We'll see on that, but I think it was a very insightful program, at least in Macomb County, that I attended in that leadership and what it takes to lead whether it be at a department, a team, or a community. We touched on time, talent, treasure, right? What can we give? So I want to roll all this now into being a road commissioner. What can you give as a road commissioner, what that role is, and or at least how I see it, and what I can do for that. Obviously, treasurer is out of the question. That's not something that you give to the community as a road commissioner. There's many other ways to do that. Certainly, time and talent, right? That's what is involved in that position. Time, yes, although I am busy, I obviously have thought about this thoroughly, and I do have the time to attend, obviously, all meetings, address concerns, and even some of the citizen questions that will come up. I will make myself available for all that. Fortunately, I have an employer that is very flexible with how I manage my time and has allowed me that freedom to manage my time as I see fit. And I think this is very important to me, and it's important to manage that time and allocate the appropriate time to this board, should you choose to put me on it. Talent that you give. I have the background for civil engineering, obviously, and constructing roads. However, it is not by any means my intent to come in as a road commissioner, if you put me there, and to instill or impose a way of design, a way of thought, a way of construction of the roads. That's what the staff does. I met with Brad on Friday for a couple hours, actually, just talking about Berry County roads, and you guys have a tremendous staff there. They've done great work. It is not my role to come in there and change that in any way. My role as a board commissioner, individually, a board commissioner doesn't have that much authority, if any at all, really. It's as a group, as a collective, the three commissioners that really have the authority. So my role would be work with the other two commissioners as part of the team to make sure that the department continues on and furthers the mission of the Berry County Road Commission. I went through that as well, the mission, and I found it interesting, and just want to take a second to read it here because I don't think it was mentioned. The mission of the Road Commission is to maintain all Berry County roads and bridges in a safe, convenient condition for public travel while practicing sound financial management, respect for environment, and sensitivity to community concerns. Couple of keywords: maintain, not reconstruct, not rebuild, maintain all roads, safe environment, obviously, in a sound financial management. So tying this all back to the talent, I have the background, I have the skills for budgeting, for how these roads are constructed to support the team as needed in continuing that mission or furthering that mission and maintaining the Berry County roads that are already in outstanding condition to make sure they remain that way for as long as possible. I can switch to even answer a couple of questions that you guys had already asked or open it up for those questions. It's, at this point, up to you guys.
Okay. Vice Chair Hatfield?
Thank you, and thank you very much for your interest in this. I think you are correct. You shortcut most of at least my questions with your presentation, but I hope that sitting through this process, you understand that we are blessed with a number of very well qualified candidates. But one of the things that struck me in your presentation is I can think of a number of different ways that your knowledge and skills could be of service to this community. So I hope, irrespective of how this application goes, that we might be able to convince you to look at some of the other activities that are going on, both in economic development and career and technical education, and put those skills and interests to work in the community. So,
certainly.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
I guess I'm going to copycat Commissioner Hatfield there. When you do such a thorough job of presentation, it takes away all my questions. But very good job, nice presentation, and most of all, welcome to Berry County. I know you haven't been here very long, but you certainly have qualifications that will be an asset, and we're glad you're willing to share them.
I'm hoping that in 50 years I can say I've lived in Berry County for most of my life, like I've heard said so many times here.
There you go. Thank you.
Commissioner Tennyson?
Appreciate you applying. You're well-rounded and very versed, so. One question, where do you see the roads and everything in the next 5 years? Where do you have a vision of what we're going to be facing? Obviously, you're in this field, so.
to ask a question back, are you referring to Berry County specifically, or
Yes.
state of Michigan, or just in general? roads?
Basically, well, Michigan in general, but yet Berry County.
I think more and more recently, what we're seeing is, I'm sure everybody's heard it, shortage of materials, shortage of labor, right, of skilled labor. So that's going to be the challenge for the next decade, I would say, easily.
Oh, I can see that, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Commissioner Smelker.
No questions. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
I appreciate somebody as a new resident being willing to throw their hat in the ring. You obviously come with a lot of experience. I think you'd make a great road commissioner. I think we have a number of applicants that would make great road commissioners. So appreciate you taking the time and just sharing a little bit about yourself, and to echo Commissioner Hatfield and Commissioner Campbell. I hope that you'll look at ways, regardless of how things turn out today, how you can serve Berry County, because I know that there's lots of ways that you can use your talents and treasures and skill set to serve.
Certainly.
Commissioner Colton.
I'm an immigrant from Oakland County, and I know we've come to Berry County and found the promised land here. I wanted to understand a little bit more of the company you're involved in. Tell me what they do a little bit more.
Anderson, Eckstein, Westrick, I presume you're referring, okay. Anderson, Eckstein, Westrick is a engineering, surveying, and architecture consulting firm. Like I said, primarily rooted in public service work, so 80%, approximately 80% of all of our work is in the public sector. Specifically, we are the engineers of record, or represent many of the townships and municipalities in Macomb. I believe over half of the Macomb townships have hired us as their consultant engineers, either to represent them as their only consultant, or joint with another engineering firm. We do a lot of their work for managing their assets, be it roads, underground infrastructures like pipes, and both designing and overseeing the construction of those programs. We also do a lot of work for the surrounding counties as well, Wayne County and Oakland County, for that matter. We represent a few communities in each of those counties as well. So predominantly, the scope of our work is consulting services in engineering, architecture, and surveying in the public sector.
Okay, so your company doesn't get into the nitty-gritty, hauling gravel, chip sealing, building roads, or anything like that. They're more into design.
Correct. We're on the design and construction management side.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Doster.
And this engineering company, it's in Shelby Township?
Correct.
And-
There's multiple offices. but
And that's basically a suburb of Detroit?
Yes.
Okay, and yet you live in Crooked Lake in Prairieville Township. How does that work?
Again, having worked there for so long, a very good relationship with all the other owners of the company. They've allowed me the luxury of predominantly working remotely. A lot of the design work, a lot of the coordination and planning can be done remotely. There are certainly times that I do travel out to the east side to see those projects in place, especially during construction. Typically, I will travel once a week, if not once every other week, to oversee some of those projects. But again, that's all built into my analysis of time management, so that's not, it's not really a concern of, splitting time. I think doing what I do as a manager, project manager, time management is a skill if you don't have, you won't succeed.
So you live here full-time? You're not a summer resident
No,
of the
no, I
lakes?
live here full-time, yes.
And
own residence here.
what brought you to Berry County? Why did you move here?
Relationship with my girlfriend, it started there. And then obviously as that grew, with a lot of travels to Berry County, it's, if you've been to suburbia, Berry County is a whole different world in a much better way. Hopefully they're not watching this. As an outdoorsy person, we do a lot of hiking. We plan a hiking trip almost every year. We do a lot of local hiking as well. To be in Berry County to me is just such an asset, it's intentional decision that I made to move here, obviously. So I have family on that side, but intentionally decided to move here because I do
So
believe it's a great
would you say you are committed to this area?
I would say yes. As I said earlier, I hope that in 50 years I can say I've been a lifetime resident of Berry County. Wherever I go, this is my home now. And as this is my home, this is where I am committed to. This is the community that I want to be a part of. This is the community that I want to get involved in, and thus being here today, so.
And you said you didn't see your role as trying to strong-arm engineering into the road commission in this position. What do you see your role as there?
Role of any board commissioner for roads, specifically for roads, I mean, for really most boards, it's policy, not decision. That's straight out of the CRA handbook and pamphlet, right? So it's setting a policy, setting an environment where the department can succeed in furthering the mission. So my role would be to review their work and make sure that it is in compliance with those stated goals and missions. There's many ways to design a project. There's many ways to construct something. It is not my intent or role to analyze each one of those and try to push one versus the other. If the proposed plan that Brad and his team, or Jake when he takes over and his team have put forth to the road commission for approval, if that plan furthers the mission and is an effective plan, then my role is to support it.
And what was your formal education?
I have a bachelor's degree from Purdue University in civil engineering, and then a master's degree also in civil engineering from University of Detroit Mercy. I've also been through LEED accreditation, leadership in engineering, or leadership in environment and energy for new construction work as well.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you, Yuli.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll let you know soon. Commissioners, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. We have one more interview for road commission, or do we want to do a break right now?
I could have finished that.
Do one more? You can do one more? Okay. Next and finally on our list of interviewees, Mr. Chris Stafford, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chris.
Morning, sir.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for the road commission.
Well, thank you for letting me have this interview. My name is Chris Stafford, lifelong Berry County resident. I grew up in Dowling. I was a Pleasant View K through 5. I was the first class that went to the middle school in 6th grade, graduated in 1994, attended KCC, I got a applied science degree in law enforcement. Go forward a few years, I started working at Bradford White, worked for a year and a half out on the floor, got an opportunity to work in the engineering department. I worked in the lab for 10 years and then actually became an engineer, and there's a long story because having a law enforcement degree and going engineering, I could fill the next half hour and you guys want to go use the bathrooms. But with that, I left Bradford White in June 19, and in my title, I started as associate design engineer. In my degrees, I have about 85 hours. I went back to school after I started White's for some C++ and some AutoCAD 14 training to look, maybe I go back to school. Then I got a family, married July 14th, 1994 during a Bradford White shutdown, because you know what? You start there, that's when you get married, is when the company is shut down. In leaving White's, I was the principal design engineer. I ran small projects and multi-million-dollar projects there. And I'm a very anal person, and I like to have my hands in every aspect of it. So from the design to the development to the prototyping to the field service to the training, that's what I do. So the last project I did was a 120-gallon water heater at 500,000 BTUs, and it was high efficient. So that's the latest and greatest DOE specs. So it was the largest tank Bradford White Meadowville has ever built at the highest input. And my speak is not always politically correct. That was from a Dowling, Berry County hillbilly with a applied science of law enforcement degree. More story behind that. Currently, I'm on the board of directors for the Hastings Band Boosters. I've been the president, the secretary, the vice president. I've worked through a grant through Berry Community Foundation. I was offered a slot on their Healthy Communities grant. In the application process, you're supposed to do a project summary, so I put a little PowerPoint together, and they liked it so much, they invited me to sit on the board. Currently, I just came from the Barry Community ISD Workforce Connections meeting, which I took over in December, running the agenda. I'm very good friends with Superintendent Rich Franklin, who is a band dad. I've made lots of great connections through that, because in my mind, band kids are good kids. And then currently, since I've retired, I was going to do some engineering consulting, but then COVID hit. Not a lot of people like new people coming in their doors. So I added on to my pole barn, refinished a few bathrooms, and I might have bought the former Bull Creek building, and I'm currently turning it into a career development skills center, and it's called The Hub. So I presented at Rotary yesterday, and I would love to have that presentation in front of you guys at some point, but that's beside the point, because I can do it in 15 minutes and I can do it in an hour and a half. Why I'm coming to this is community is very large to me. It's a very important part of my life. It's not the main mission. I think giving back and getting kids to, again, get this hands-on skills opportunities that are needed in the trades and the manufacturing is missing. When I graduated in middle school, I had Mr. Scott, I had Mr. Logan in high school, I had metal shop, wood shop, auto shop, and those aren't per se gone. They're now called CTE, but not at the same hands-on level. Ed Domke, who has been the 39-year, I'll say, master of keeping CTE programs in Hastings, deserves to have a statue in the middle of town. Is with the multiple school boards he's been through. If it wasn't for Ed, we wouldn't have a trades program. We wouldn't have dual enrollment with the welding program with the co-curriculum. We wouldn't have Tom Watson of TNR doing the Cedar Creek Machinist program with the help of KCC. So this inspired me to start the Hub. So I'm a firm believer to lead by example, not by position. I can if I have to, but usually my work speaks for itself. So, you know, I believe that if you're not willing to invest your own skin in the game and what you believe in, don't start preaching to people about it or asking for help or asking for support. So I bought the building, got possession of it January 13th of 2022, and currently have been cleaning the stuff off the floors, off the walls, off the ceiling. Officially, I will open it for spring break to all the local schools to have, still working up catchy names, spring break into a career fest, and offering kids opportunities for a day of what is carpentry, another day what is plumbing, what is electrical, what is manufacturing, what is metal fabrication, what is health and wellness, to work with the community supporters of businesses I've been working with so they can understand what hands-on. And I only listened to the last three. I've worked with Jim on some school projects, and they sound like great, qualified people. And I mean, I just like to be in the same interview process with them. And why I'm doing this is I hate politics. I mean, but community involvement makes you need to understand all aspects of it. And I think this would be a great role because being in a commission is a way to start to understand the different levels of how the local government works with the state government, works with the community government, that works with the village, because I've been heavily diving into that under the projects I've been working on. And I've done everything from, I'll be a 501c3, I have 2 LLCs. I've been pounding the pavement, not only the Barry County businesses, but in my 2 decades at Wykes, I'm going outside the county, bringing in companies that want to be hands-on to our students. For instance, AIS was at my building last week, Thursday. They have a training facility in Lansing, and they want to bring something more locally, closer to Grand Rapids, so why not in Barry County? You know, exactly in the road commission, you have heavy equipment, you need operators for it, and I could not speak more of us losing our youth to the trades, be it whatever it is, drywall, plumbing, carpentry, heavy equipment. If we don't have those operators, we're not going to be able to maintain our roads. We're not going to be able to build our houses. Mr. Tunison, my sister's graduated with his sons, is if Bob didn't finish all those houses, I mean, we wouldn't have the quality of the infrastructure we have in our great community. So I'll leave it at that, because if I start rambling, I don't want to keep going.
Okay. We should have a conversation at some point about CTE as well, and
Yes.
what the Berry County Economic Development Team is working on with that, if you haven't met Jennifer Heinzman.
I am directly involved with Jennifer Heisman. I approached at the incubator committee. I'm directly involved with Bonnie, and actually, I presented at the LDFA meeting, who said you need to go in front of the county. In my mind, I needed to have a more foundational structure of what I'm doing. So, yes, is the short answer.
Awesome. Have you been to road commission meetings before?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. When you look at the road commission and the vision, do you see problems? Do you see things that need to be addressed? If there's something you could tackle going forward, what would that be?
I think as I didn't make it to enough meetings, but I like to understand stuff before I go in. I think the maintaining of the roads have been really good, and the chatter bump earlier, I mean, I grew up in Dowling, so I can understand that as it's a hard time when we can't hit all the roads and get them to the quality level that are there. And then the other aspect of coming to meetings upset, my first house was on Barber Road, the curve that goes from Woodland into Barber. And the dirt road behind me in Hastings Charter Township, when I moved in, used to be sprayed by my tax dollars. And then for some reason, they stopped that. And when I called Mr. Brown, he goes, hey, you can pay for it. Here's the number. And it's like, it's getting information out to people why that stuff happens. I don't think it was the county's road commission's idea. I'm sure it came from the Charter Township level. So I think being very clear on what goes in. I mean, yes, sometimes you have to do a closed door, but transparency is what you see in me is what you get. So I think it's just open transparency. I'm not a civil engineer. My oldest son started Western with that. COVID killed that when he had to do Calculus 2 in University of Phoenix in his dorm room. So now he's going for accounting with a manufacturing minor. So I'm not the expert, but I'm anal and I dig into stuff so I can have a educated thing. So I would like to experience what it is, rely on some of the other experts that are there. I'm very good friends with Mr. Solms, known him since high school. And you rely on the experts. And the interviewees before me have seen a lot more background on civil engineering, but as project management, you listen, you learn, you have to make some tough decisions. So,
Commissioner, Vice Chair Hatfield.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I am extremely excited about what I see you doing with the Bull Creek facility. I'm also a strong supporter of CTE, and
you're on my list.
Yeah, I won't ask which one.
On a lot of lists, yes.
I'm on a lot of lists. Yeah, irrespective of how this goes, I applaud your efforts on so many fronts, and I trust that we'll see you back here on a number of occasions for one thing or another. So,
thank you, sir.
Thank you for your application and for being here today.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Campbell.
Dave has got to quit going before me. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm just really impressed that you're doing that with the old Bull Creek facility. I promise not to bring my horses there anymore, but just what it's going to mean for the county and the youth, those are the kind of things that we really need here in the county. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Well, and you probably don't remember me. You actually coached my mom in softball, so I remember many years ago sitting on the sideline when you were a coach. So it's nice to see you've kept that coaching spirit alive.
Well, I'm glad you still like me.
And if I remember right, you owned Dowling General Store at one time.
I did for about 8 years.
Yep, my mom. I remember your cookies very well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
How you doing? I commend you on what you got starting to start up. You and Tom Watson are instrumental in getting the youth involved with the stuff that we're going to be losing with all the baby boomers retiring and their knowledge of all the skilled trades. So I commend you guys, both of you, for your commitment to the youth and showing them a different path, that they don't necessarily, working with your hands is not a bad thing.
No, totally agree.
Okay, and I mean, the careers that these kids could have, if they could understand All they do have to do is just apply themselves, work hard, show some initiative, and people will find them. Because you can't find anybody right now that really wants to work.
Yeah.
And take that time. But, getting back to the road commission, what do you think some of your strongest suits in life are? As far as dealing with
It's
people
getting
and
in front of people and talking to all levels. So again, I'm Berry County born and bred. I take redneck as a strong thing because that's just my ability to listen and push out the BS. Is I've dealt with, one of my strong suits was when I would go do training to these plumbing houses, and I've been all over the US, Mexico, Canada, done a training in Europe, is I would go into a plumbing house, these 25 to 40-year-old veteran plumbers that work with a plumber, and that's all I'm gonna say. They're very set in their ways. Well, I'm some young kid coming in, trying to tell them, hey, here's the latest and greatest thing, a standard changed, and they don't want to hear that. It's, I want to continue working the way I have for the last 30 years. And I have to convince them, no, you can't put gasoline in front of your heater anymore because it blows up. This is FAIR technology. Here's why the government said we had to do it. Yes, it's rules and regulations, but explain the science behind it and take out the scariness of this is different, and then go from a standing pilot to an intermittent pilot to an auto ignition pilot to show that moving forward with technology isn't a bad thing, and that if you don't understand it, you're going to lose business. I mean, one example is I was the oil fire guy for Chanel No. 2 because I had a Montgomery Ward's furnace and oil fire water heater in my home growing up. The VP of Engineering came and said, hey, you're going to go learn this from some experts out in the field. Well, 4 years later, oil fires are gone. There's very few operators. It scares the heck out of me that stuff like that happens. And if we don't retain that understanding of the past, the future is just not going to be as bright as it could be.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Smelker?
No questions. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty?
Your work on the hub and for the next generation is inspiring. You're not in no disrespect to the 60-year-olds in the room, but you're young and you're passionate, and thank you for serving your community in that way, and being willing to step into another role. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Colton?
I see you were doing engineer at Bradford Weiss. What's your formal background in engineering?
So I'll start it, when I graduated in 1994, I started KCC, and back in the day, I was doing pre-engineering, and I wanted to go to GMI, which is Kettering. So doing that for about a year, and I worked at, you guys would know it, Hudson's at Lakeview Square Mall, which no longer exists, the company, or pretty much the mall. I started as sales, selling suits. Then I went into customer service. Then I went into asset protection. So I got this wild hair to go, this is fun, busting shoplifters. Well, my sister was a law enforcement officer for BCPD. So then I switched to law enforcement. So I finished with that, graduated in May of '97 with an Associate's Applied Science of Law Enforcement. So I wanted to go be a cop. Engineering was my beginning, but kids do crazy stuff. So during working with Hudson's, I moved up through the ranks and got managerial on the merchandise receiving floor, so merchandise floor at the dock. So I went to Columbus, opened a store, and decided that working 70 hours a week, getting paid for 40 really sucks. And I came back to Michigan. And so I went back into the law enforcement. Well, to get into the law enforcement back in the day, it used to be called Malazzi. You have to do health, mental. Well, in the health side, I have ringing in my ears. I have tinnitus. At the start of the program, I could pass it. So as I went back, I took the state police trooper test, passed the written, passed the physical, and I got my card to get into the academy for the motor carriers division. And I was told, go check my hearing again, because if they check it, it'll be on your file if you can't pass it. Well, I couldn't pass it anymore. So in all that time, I stayed working at White's, and I got into the engineering lab. The VP of engineering says, hey, you got an associate's. If you want a card to get in the club on the engineering side, you need a bachelor's. Well, I have a 5 and a 7-year-old at that time. I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week. I don't want to give my time away. So that's where I took a C++ class and an AutoCAD 14 class, and I went, my family is way more important to me. Segue till 2010, I finally broke them down. My supervisor said, hey, they're offering your associate engineering degree or a job. I was like, I got to go back to school? And he said, no. But don't get me wrong, I believe in mentorship. I had some great mentors over 10 years that taught me a lot. My first day on the job, I had to get on the whiteboard and show the first principles of engineering. I learned, and nothing against going to school. It is a very diligent way for people to do that. Mine was 10 years of actually doing it, working with certification and agencies within domestic and international, working with engineers, suppliers, doing stuff hands-on, troubleshooting, figuring out this water heater's blown up at this parking garage. Why did that happen? That was my education. So I won't say it's the real world, but it was learned on the fly, and mentorship is very huge to me. I had some great people help me along the way, and I'm not pig-headed enough that if somebody knows more than me and wants to share that with me, I'm going to absorb that. And now I want to give all that back. I mean, I'm cheap, so I'll do my own electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and all that. Why not share that back? So at least kids have an understanding of that. They don't have to have it as a career, but at least they won't get screwed over when somebody says, oh, you need a new furnace. I just bought this 2 years ago. I don't need a new furnace. So I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you did. And I was trying to figure out where I saw you before, and I'm pretty sure you sold me a suit at Hudson's.
December of 1994.
Yeah.
Suit selling is very challenging. Didn't like it, but.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Chris, we appreciate you coming in today for an interview.
Thank you, sir.
And we will let you know soon.
Appreciate that.
Thanks. Commissioners, let's take a 7 to 10 minute recess and come back and continue our interview. Committee of the Whole will be back in session. Next up, interviews for Central Dispatch Authority. First on our list of interviews is Kristen Cove.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. She did. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Good morning.
If you would, please, give us a little bit about your background. And we know you've been on the Central Dispatch Board for a while, so maybe some of your experience with the Dispatch Board to present.
Sure, I've been on the Central Dispatch Board for 5 years, and my position is up for reappointment. I believe our citizen at large position gets reappointed every 2 years by the county commissioners. So I'm back seeking reappointment. My husband Andy and I are lifers, like many of the other people that spoke today. We're Berry County born and have chosen to stay here and raise our children here. We have 4 boys. Our oldest and his wife are teachers. Our next kiddo works at FlexFab. The next one is a student at Hope College majoring in history and German. And the baby is a freshman at TK High School. We love where we live, quite frankly. We love Berry County. We love being here. We love investing in our community through serving and volunteering, and I really enjoy the Berry County Central Dispatch Board. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years. I was appointed as the Personnel Committee Chair maybe 3 years ago. So since that time, we have developed the Deputy Director position and hired a Deputy Director. Of course, there's yearly negotiations, evaluations, et cetera. What questions do you have for me?
I'm going to let Commissioner Smelker start first, since he is on the Central Dispatch 911 Board.
Thank you for reapplying, Kristen. You've been on the Personnel Committee all the 5 years we were on there, and then you moved to chair about 3 years ago. Is that true?
Correct, yes.
And how many negotiations have you went through? Do you remember?
I don't off the top of my head. Many?
Yeah. And I just want to say that Kristen does an excellent job chairing our Personnel Committee. And I believe that she would do a great job for another 2 years. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty. Right when you took a bite of something, so you know.
What do you see as, there we go. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing dispatch in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, of course, staffing, just like every other employer, but staffing is a little bit more critical when you're talking about central dispatch. You have to have people to answer the 911 calls when people call. So of course, it's attracting and retaining staff. Quite frankly, they could make more money elsewhere for less stress. So it's making sure that we have competitive wages and benefits to retain those staff members once they're sufficiently trained. Of course, technology is always evolving, and so making sure that our technology is up to date and the best that we can provide the first responders in Berry County. And funding. You know, we have 2 tower projects going right now that Director Lehman was able to receive almost $6 million in grant money for, but in order to complete that full project, we need 8 towers. So she has found funding for 2, which is phenomenal. Very grateful for the work that she did on that. But there's still 6 more towers that need to be constructed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Colton.
What has been the toughest part about being on this board for you?
For me, it's just hearing some of the personal stories about the calls our dispatchers have taken and how they've impacted them, because they aren't robots. They are human beings with feelings, and they're terrific people. And so they take very hard calls sometimes, and then it's dealing with the aftermath of those calls. making sure they have good support for mental health, et cetera.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing further.
Vice Chair Hatfield.
Your reputation precedes you, not to mention the fact that I've had the pleasure of working with you on some other community initiatives and have a great deal of respect for your abilities. So thank you for your interest in continuing with the dispatch board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Campbell.
I too would like to thank you for being here today. Obviously, you do many, many good things for our county as I look at your list here of experience. So I hope you continue the way you are, because the way you are is working very well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
Obviously, you got a passion for this. You've been here since 2017, so I want to thank you for reapplying. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Kristen, I have no questions for you as I look through your resume. You're certainly involved in our community on many different levels and many different aspects. So I appreciate your time and effort and energy that you're putting into 911 Dispatch Board, and we'll have a decision for you soon.
Sure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We had a second application from Kenneth Wins. He did call in this morning and had a health issue, so he is not going to be with us today. We'll talk about that at the end of the meeting, how we want to proceed or move forward with that. So we're going to move ahead with our agenda at this point. Is Bill Voigt here? Bill Voigt is here. Boom. Wow, just like that. Poof, out of the clouds. So,
Good morning.
good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
Were you just timing that for a dramatic entry?
Well, that's all the drama I have, I'm afraid, but I'll do whatever I can. Do you all have a copy of the resolution of intent to file?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have some supplemental if you'd like.
It's an addition to the original, or it is?
It's a copy, I wasn't sure you'd have it in front of you, so it's a copy of the resolution of intent, as well as the public notice that we published and the actual budget projection for fiscal 2024.
And if you would, since we have 4 new commissioners, would you give us just a brief overview of Berry County Transit? Maybe the number of miles you guys run, the number of stops or the number of vehicles you have, just to give us a little background?
I sure will.
Before going into this, please.
I sure will. We cover all of Berry County, and our community can ride for any reason, any ride purpose whatsoever. The most it would cost anyone from one corner of the county to another is $3. People with disabilities and seniors, which is 60 years of age in our community, ride for half fare all the time. Last year we had 63,000 rides, and we have kind of a three-sided revenue model, if you will. We have ride fares, that's 1/3, not equals 1/3, but ride fares is 1/3 of the source of our revenue. We have our millage, and then we have the reimbursement of our eligible expenses from the state and federal government, which is, my purpose here today. So really, we like to think that our purpose and our mission is to make sure that no matter where you live in Berry County, you will have access to the things that you need for a quality life, regardless of your circumstances or status.
No, that's great.
Good.
That's great. And for the fiscal year 2024 resolution of intent, could you give us a brief explanation of that?
Sure. So we apply for each year, this is significant funding. We apply for state and federal funds that we receive in the form of reimbursement of our eligible expenses, which is essentially all of our expenses. This year, and so that usually amounts to 50 to 60% of our total expenses that we receive back. And in fact, we receive more back from this grant funding than the total amount of our local millage. And so it's a significant thing that we apply for here, and we do it annually, as I said. So if I crunch the numbers here, we're applying for, with your consent, I should say, for $317,097 of federal funds and $609,264 of state funds. So that with an estimated total local funds in fiscal 2024 of $857,284, that will balance our budget with the anticipated total expense of $1,767,198.
Awesome. Is this budget figure the same as last year? Are they continuing to bump this rate, or?
We've been very fortunate, as a lot of other entities have, in that we did receive for the last couple of years additional CARES and ARPA funds. So it has been dropping.
Okay.
Because, I mean, that was out of the norm.
Right.
However. But so this year, or I should say 2024, the year we're talking about, we're back to the usual, if there is such a thing, reimbursement rate of about 35% or more from the state of Michigan and 18% from the federal government. In the last couple of years, the federal government has been at about 40% and 36%, I think it was last year. So a significant increase over those COVID years.
Okay, awesome. Questions from commissioners? No questions?
I noticed that somewhere in there, it's like $5,500 worth of ineligible expenditure. What does that mean? What is that?
Basically, that protects the state and federal government, these funds here from, so that nobody double dips. In other words, if expenses are compensated from a grant of a different source, or there's training funds available, so when those costs are defrayed by or paid for either in part or wholly by other grants, then we're made whole. And so those expenses, even though they do show on the expense side, those are backed out because the government certainly doesn't want to pay for those things twice.
Could you give an example of what those
Training,
might be? Okay.
training, for example, we had $10,000 in training module that we purchased last year, and those were paid for by a program called RTAP. And so in receiving those funds, it's paid for, and so we back those out because we don't want to submit those for reimbursement again.
Awesome. Additional questions? Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-04, a resolution of intent to apply for state and federal operating and capital assistance for 2024 fiscal year, and appoint William Voigt as the Transportation Coordinator, authorized to provide such information as deemed necessary by the State Transportation Commission or Department for its administration of Act 51, and sign and execute all agreements of documents.
So moved.
Support. Moved by Smelker, supported by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-04, a resolution of intent to apply for state and federal operating and capital assistance of the 2024 fiscal year, and appoint William Voigt as the Transportation Coordinator, authorized to provide such information as deemed necessary by the State Transportation Commission or Department for its administration of Act 51, sign and execute all agreements. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, Carrie Selleck.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Carrie. How are you?
Good. Busy. Tuesday after a 3-day weekend.
Yeah. Is this what we have done on an annual basis now?
Yes, it's the same thing we do every year.
Okay. Would you please give a brief explanation of the Indigent Defense Office, what you do, how long we've had this? I know it's kind of a recent.
Yep. We started here in Berry County in December of 2018. So December of 2018, we really got rolling in 2019. Basically, there was a bunch of statutes that came down through the state of Michigan regarding Indigent Defense Council, training requirements, payment requirements, bunches of different requirements. And our office was created because we did not have a public defender's office before that. We had contract attorneys. We still mainly have contract attorneys. We have 7 contract attorneys, as you can see from the list this year. There's myself, I have a caseload. William Renner is our assistant public defender. He has a caseload, and of course, our office is run by Roberta Kraus. Essentially what we do is we represent every single person at arraignment who is charged with a crime in Berry County, whether it be a felony, a misdemeanor, a probation violation, friend of the court show cause, or personal protection order violation. So no one, unless they waive an attorney, no one stands in front of the judge for an arraignment of any kind without counsel present anymore. That was the biggest impetus behind this change in the indigent defense field. And so we represent, again, people at arraignments. We're able to make bond recommendations, bond arguments, all of those bond condition arguments, all of those kinds of things. And we do that both in front of the magistrates and in front of the judges. And again, we also have caseloads. These 7 attorneys are the attorneys, they do not handle the arraignment portion. That's myself and Mr. Renner mostly. These 7 attorneys handle the cases after arraignment. So they are the attorney of record that handles the case from the next court hearing on until the case's completion. So that is what these 7 contract attorneys do for us.
Okay. Have we reduced the number of contract attorneys?
We haven't reduced. We still are approved for 10. We've only been able to fill 7 positions. We do have 3 open positions that we have the funding in place for. Every single public defender's office in the state of Michigan is struggling to find attorneys to fill their open vacancies. The good thing is because I have a caseload, Mr. Renner has a caseload, our attorneys are not overwhelmed. In fact, their caseloads are still a little bit down post-COVID. They're not back up to the levels they were pre-COVID. Our attorneys average about 60 appointments per year. And these attorneys handle mostly felony cases. Mr. Renner handles most of the misdemeanors in our office. So these are attorneys who handle the felony appointments.
Okay. Any significant changes in funding year over year?
No, there was a cost of living increase this year. There will be some likely significant changes next fiscal year, only because the state of Michigan and Indigent Defense Commission has approved Standard 8, which is in terms of how you pay attorneys. Our attorneys really like the way they get paid here because we have a flat contract fee amount. They know exactly what they're getting paid every month on their contracts for the cases that they have, and they do get paid extra for initial interviews with their clients as well as for trial work. The state of Michigan doesn't like that system. They want everyone to go to an hourly system. I'm not sure they understand how much more that is going to cost, but that is likely going to substantially increase what attorneys, increase the workload because they have to bill. They want to set certain caps on everything. Our attorneys want to keep this system in place, so that's what we're fighting for right now. But there's going to be some increases. And I say that with a caveat. By statute, the county has to pay a certain portion. It's like $230-some thousand is the most. The county has to contribute. Everything above that amount that our office needs to operate per statute has to be paid, shall be paid by the state of Michigan. So that's where the majority of our funding comes from.
Okay. So the county expense won't necessarily rise?
The county expense will not change. There's a cap, and it was from, I think, the 2018 number. I want to say it's like $236,000 is the most the county will ever have to pay unless they go change the statute.
Okay. Awesome. Question from commissioners?
I have a question. How do you determine who's eligible for public defender? How does
We have
that
a financial
determine?
form. So
Okay.
whenever anyone comes in for an arraignment, we have a standard financial form. It asks employment, housing, income, debts, assets, all of that. And so we fill out that form with everyone. We go by the federal poverty guidelines. We also recognize that, some people may own a home, they have a mortgage, they don't have any cash. So there are certain types of violent crime offenses in that which we just won't let people stand in front of a judge without an attorney. It's just not right. But we have a financial form. And so most of the people who come through our office are indigent under those financial rules that we have.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. I was on the public defender list for over 20 years here at Berry County, and am familiar with all but maybe one of these attorneys. I've seen them in court. They're all very competent attorneys and genuinely good people. I would heartily recommend the adoption of this.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the job your office is doing. It was kind of an interesting, in 2008, trying to put it all together and make it work, but especially last few years with the number of felonies and criminal activities that's been in the county, it's been rather interesting, so I'm sure your office has been busy.
It has been busy, and I will say, and I scream this from the rafters, every opportunity that I get, Berry County, we are very lucky. We do not have a COVID backlog of criminal cases, period. We, in the beginning, kind of changed how we did things a little bit, and then we staggered schedules, and we made things work because I've said this before and I'll say it again, even just clearing up a driving while license suspended ticket is a life changer for some people, being able to get their driver's licenses back. So the fact that we do not have a COVID backlog in Berry County is something we should all be extremely proud of, because that's not the case hardly anywhere else.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. If there's no further questions, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached 2023 contracts for Indigent Defense Council services with Carol Dwyer, Kristen Hold, James Kinney, Gordon Shane McNeil, Catherine Russell, Lionel Woolley, and Kimberly Young.
So moved. Doster.
Support, Getty.
Who moved? Doster?
I'll let
Okay.
Doster.
Moved by Doster, supported by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for the attached 2023 contracts for Indigent Defense Council services with Carol Dwyer, Kristen Hall, James Kinney, Gordon Shane McNeil, Catherine Russell, Lionel Woolley, and Kimberly Young. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Carrie. Next on our list, Ken Kirsch and Morgan McNutt from the Animal Shelter. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, how are y'all doing?
Good to see you guys again.
Thank you.
What do we have here this morning, Ken?
Well, so we're asking for the commissioners to transfer $25,000 from our animal shelter general donation fund to the trap, neuter, and release fund. Currently, the fund sets at $304,577.38. And I also gave everybody a list of the last 6 years of how many trap, neuter, and return cats that we've taken care of in Berry County and the cost. So this TNR program for the new commissioners is residents of Berry County that have feral and barn cats, we will spay or neuter, a rabies shot, flea treat, and tip the left ear of these cats at no cost for residents of the county. It helps with this massive cat overpopulation here in the county, and because obviously at a small shelter like us, we can only take in so many and place so many cats a year, and this helps. Normally, all of the funds that we get for this is done through grants. And last year, I had 4 grants for the TNR program, so it's not out of our budget. And the last grant we had from 2020 expires Thursday, the 20th. We'll spend all that money, and then we have to start the process of applying for new grants. And there's a 4-month hold in between ending a grant and starting applications for new grants. And so this $25,000 that we'll be able to continue without stopping the spaying and neutering of feral cats in the county until the next grant cycle comes in and we can get more funds for it. In 2017, we did 300 cats at $21,600. Last year, just to jump right to last year, in 2022, we did 346 cats at $24,912. And we're on course right now for this year to do 384 cats at just over $28,000. And with transferring this money, we'll be able to continue versus stopping. What happens when we stop this cycle is obviously then the cats reproduce, and then all we're doing is playing catch up. So this money will be put in a fund, and we're going to use it in between grant cycles, is the idea. It's funds that have been donated to the shelter, and we have more than enough to do it. Put the $25,000. I think that will keep us going for 2023.
Are we running out of cats yet?
No. No.
No?
I wish.
So we're winning some battles but losing the war?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're still fighting the war, though.
There you go. There you go. Questions from commissioners? Hearing no questions, let me just say I appreciate the job you guys are doing down there. Chairing the Animal Shelter, Advisory Board for several years and seeing the changes that have gone through, getting a chance to spend some time with Morgan and seeing some of the transitions happening there. I would encourage all commissioners, if you haven't got a chance to stop down there and see the kennel and spend some time with Ken, it is a worthwhile investment because it is really, for kennels, it is top notch. It is the pride of our county. It is, I would put it up against anyone, and Ken, you can tell them, but we did something, I say we, I'll take credit for it too, but Ken did something and the people that work the shelter did something that I don't think has ever been done, that they went through 2 years back to back with USDA inspections and got a 100% perfect score, and that is unheard of.
Unheard of.
So,
It's never happened.
Never happened,
Thank
so
you.
that tells you what good leadership we have down there at this point. So
It will continue.
we appreciate that. If there are no further questions, the chair would recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to transfer $25,000 from the Animal Shelter Donation Fund to the TNR Fund to pay for spay, neuter of feral and barn cats in Berry County.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Hatfield, supported by Smelker, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for $25,000, to transfer $25,000 from the Animal Shelter Donation Fund to the TNR Fund to pay for spay and neuter of feral and barn cats in Berry County. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Stop down anytime. Just come on down. I'll give you your own private scooper.
Oh, hey, now we're talking.
There's an incentive.
I don't need any more.
Next on our agenda, Jason Sixberry. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. I'm just going to give everyone another sheet that was not attached to the agenda due to the fact that I was trying to locate the duties of the cell operator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. This technically was updated back in February of this year, or last year, 2022. There's a little bit additional changes or deleted. I took the deletions out due to the fact that we no longer do log the numbers any longer for the deputies because we have the Zerker program. So, but they still do the everything else that's on there at this time. So.
Would you like to go over the request for this morning?
Yes, sorry. So I did put it under two different agenda request forms due to the fact that they're a little bit different in price, wages per hour and everything. And there's some other things going on. So we do have the one for the court screeners' temporary salaries, which was recommended to the Board of Commissioners authorization to raise the hourly wage to court screeners from $13.27 an hour to $15 an hour. Then the description is requested by the Berry County Sheriff's Office and the Berry County Commission Administration. In 2022, the court screeners was budgeted at temporary salaries totaling $122,856 through December 2022. $98,712.37 was used from this line item, leaving $24,143.63 unused 2022 salaries. On the average, court security has used $8,226.03 a month per month, and that's the thing where we're coming at. If you go back to another page 2, it is believed that in order to retain current court screeners, it is our best interest to raise the hourly rate to be competitive with outside workforce. The court screeners are part-time and receive no other benefits as an at-will employee. We would like to maintain our court screeners employees and not have a higher turnover. please see attached breakdown, and that's on the third page, basically where it shows that pay period of 302 hours per pay period, totaling 26 pay periods, 7,852 hours total per year, less the average of 12 court holidays of 361 hours. We'd subtract from that, it'd be around 7,491 hours. And that's averaging, say, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have more court screeners than Monday and Friday. So I averaged 4 or 5. The holiday would end up on a Monday or a Friday, and the other 7 or 8 I averaged on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so it would be 3 or 4. So I put it down to that many hours. If we raise the hourly rate to $15 an hour for the normal lay court screener is 6,321 hours, as well as the liaison court screener, which gets paid $1 more an hour to handle the other issues and/or do the scheduling every pay period, which would be $16 an hour, which would come to $113,535, with the total amount unused salaries of $24,143.63 in 2022, which I know has nothing to do with this contract for this year. However, if you take $125,313.12, which is budgeted for this year for the court screeners, and subtract it from 11,000 from the 113,535, which would cost to raise it to $15 and $16 an hour instead of what they're making at $13.27 an hour right now. It'd be $11,778.12 under budget for the 2023 that we have allotted for.
Okay. How many court screeners do we have active right now?
I have it, but it's not in here. I think we have 2 new ones coming on right now that are starting their training, and then one is resigning as of the 24th or 25th. So I think it's around between 8 and 10 right now.
8 to 10
And
active?
they share the hours. Obviously, some of it's based on seniority, and the ones that have more seniority get more hours than the others.
Okay. I see, not quite 2 years ago, 5/25/21, that we did negotiate pay raises for court screeners in Control 1. So, and they are 2% for 2021, for 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Correct.
So they are getting additional pay raises.
They are.
On top of that, but you're suggesting or saying that that is not competitive with what's out there in the market, or you're having a hard time maintaining people right now?
Based on everything out there, and not everybody understands this, but just like we'll get to the Control 1s shortly also. $15 an hour, there's places you can go out there in the world. The issue with my court screeners there's one main thing they do, and that's try to protect people from bring the people that work here. Mm-hmm. All our people in the courthouses, the 2 buildings that are not secure with a lock every day where you have to go in and use your fob to get in. They're the first line and the only line basically of defense for the people that work in these 2 buildings. All right. They check and make sure we're trying to do their best to keep any weapons, firearms, knives, any explosives, that type of things coming through into this building and that's one of their main criterias. They unlock, they do that, then afterwards they lock up, they go and check and lock certain doors and that type of thing. So that's a bigger difference than me going and working at a restaurant. Can you still have issues? Do you still have people that complain because they don't like their food, that type of thing? Sure, we do. They also get different benefits. You know, if I worked at McDonald's, you work at McDonald's or at any of the restaurants, you get your wage, plus then you also get a discount, either that or for your food. You work at a big box store, you get your regular wage, $13, $16, $18, $20 an hour. Then you get, like here, if you go to Walmart, you get 10% discount from stuff you buy that's on regular price items. What do they get here except just their regular wage? So I'm trying to keep and maintain people and qualified people to do this. I know it's a part-time position. They don't get any other benefits, unlike when I was contract security with the federal government while working as law enforcement, because I did. I had time, I did it. I got paid more than double what they're getting paid right now at $13.27 an hour, plus they gave me 401K money for retirement at the same time. Mind you, I was working and doing contract security and protecting federal employees, but federal employees aren't any less worthy than county employees, in my sake. So that's one of the things. I mean, I'm not saying they're putting their lives on the line, but they also have to have CPL. They also have to be able to carry a firearm, and so
Okay.
that's one of the reasons I'm just trying to compete with other avenues in the local businesses.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
No, sir.
Now, am I understanding this right, Mr. Chair, that we want to give retroactive from 21 and 22?
No.
I did not ask for that. What I'm asking for is to get their hourly wage up to $15 an hour.
And then go with the 2%?
They're already.
The 2%'s already got-
Through
the
2025, that's been negotiated.
Oh, okay.
Right, the 2% wage for this year went up to $13.27. They are at $13.01 for the average court screener. The issue is, I'm not saying, okay, let's just do a $2 an hour raise. If we can get it up to $15 an hour, I'm just trying to make sure we keep people here. If worse comes to worse and we can't keep people, then the county's going to have to decide if they want someone doing this, or they want to hire out and do a contract security for a security company. Either, it
Commissioners
depends.
will take turns watching the door.
Well, and this all came up about with some certain court, jury trials and that type of thing a few years back, several years back now. Our posse actually was hired to do the same thing that we're doing right now. Obviously, now we have a metal detector, a magnetometer, depends on what you want to call it, as well as, the x-ray machine. So,
So I got a question.
Yeah.
All right,
Commissioner
so
Tennyson.
if somebody does leave and how much does it cost to train somebody new?
the training, first of all, they have to have a CPL.
Okay.
All right?
Does the county incur expense, is what I'm asking.
That is
to
not
train?
accounting. The only thing is it's just sort of like a field training. They don't have additional training except field training right here at the
Okay.
courthouses.
Okay.
And that's when, actually, I do have a sheet that they have to go through, but this is also the policy book that we're actually updating, but this is, it's not a small policy book, but there's certain things that, we have to, and we don't hire someone that has criminal backgrounds, that type of thing, because we're not
So
going
what
to do
is the
that.
turnover ratio, though?
Right now, it just depends on, because a lot of these are retired or just want a part-time position at this time. The problem is, it's trying to make sure we keep them.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to, I don't want to get into the situation where right now in Control 1, I can't get anybody to come any longer to work part-time because they're not going through KCC to try to become a law enforcement any longer. They're just, they want to be there, but now with losing people or can't retain people or can't find people to even apply for it that are credible, if you understand what I'm saying with that.
Absolutely.
My issue is now we're paying overtime all the time right now in Control 1. And would a new facility, sheriff's office, jail complex help us immensely? Yes. Right now, we're still looking at other avenues, and I know I'm off on a tangent on this, but we're going to get to that in a second, that we are in a position now that we're trying to figure out how we're going to cover this spot, because we're losing one that's now going to the DOC Academy. Now we're down to one part-time cadet and 2 full-time spots there. And we're trying to cover 84 additional hours right now. So
I personally don't think $15 is out of the realm of what they deserve. So, they're down there doing a service for everybody here.
they're here to protect you, here to keep things as calm as possible. They're obviously the first and sort of only line besides Deputy Pearson or any law enforcement deputy or officer that's here for court.
Right, I got it. Would you care to go into Control One?
Would I care? Sure. And the only reason I did it separate is just because they're paid separate and everything, and their duties are different. That's the main reason I did it on two separate agendas, if that's okay.
Yes.
Control One, temporary cadets, we recommend the commissioners the authorization to raise the hourly wage for the Control One cadets from $12.73 to $15 an hour. And just so you know, the $12.73 is the 2% raise in 2023 already. Okay. Request Berry County Sheriff's Office, the Berry County Administration. In 2022, the temporary salaries was $12.48 per hour, was budgeted for temporary salaries totaling $94,516. Through December 2022, $63,485.87 was used from the line item, leaving $26,566.77 unused 2022 salaries. On average, we were using or had used $5,662.44 monthly for temporary salaries. If you do go back to page 2, some of the additional, it is believed that in order to retain Control One cadets, is our best interest to raise the hourly rate to be competitive with outside workforce, same as the court screeners. This would match what is being asked for our court screeners, which are part-time and receive no other benefits as an at-will employee. We would like to maintain our Control One cadet employees and reduce turnover, which requires extensive training. We are losing another part-time Control One cadet, which will put us 3 short. We are looking at other avenues in correcting this issue. If we are not able to fulfill the positions, we would have to cover the vacant hours with overtime from either law enforcement or corrections deputies, which is on an additional page afterwards. If you do also look at the page that I also just handed you today, was the control room operator's duties. This is what the normal control room operator in Control One does. There's a lot of extensive issues here. One thing is they have to be lean certified, which means they have to be confidential. We have to have someone that we can trust that won't leak information out or use it illegally. If they do, then that could get us in trouble as well as them, but they could also get in some major criminal issues with that. They also are the ones that allow people into the Sally Port. They push the buttons allow that, or into our office and control, or back into the jail. So we have to trust that they would not allow someone back there that could do harm. You know, it's and they're part-time people. We have 2 full-time. One, Paul Ballinger, retired, and then Nicole Ridner took his spot. Bless you. And then the assistant is now Lily, which took her spot as part-time or full-time spot. So we have 2 full-time Control One operators, and then we had 4 part-timers at one time. Hard part is at one point we had people that wanted to be part-time cadets there that were going into the law enforcement academy because they sort of put their foot in the door to see how things are. Plus they were taking their college education classes at the same time, pushing forward to become a law enforcement. Now at this point, there's other things going on. They make more money other places. I'm not sure what's going on, but at $12.78, well, it's hard to get someone to hire. We hired someone. They went through basically 2 months of training because this is much more extensive training, and trying to push them 8 hours of this task with answering the phone and trying to learn lean and all the other stuff. It's just they broke it down to 4 to 6 hours at a time for training. We just had one that just got on their own, and winter storm comes and says, I'm driving 25 miles, and if something happens in my car, I can't afford even to pay full, insurance for full coverage. So I can't do it. So that person quit after being with us for maybe on her own for maybe 4 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that, maybe even less. So every time we turn around and find someone, get them trained, then they can find something better, unfortunately, for the price, or get more hours. Right now, unfortunately for us, is our cadets are getting worked more hours than they would like the hours, but sometimes they're actually getting full-time hours right now because we don't have the manpower to handle it. And in doing so, saying that if we can't keep people there or if we cannot find it, the back pages after that shows control 2023 Control 1 staffing, which shows our people getting wages of 48 hours per pay period. And if you have questions, I can go through it, and then it shows it at $15 an hour. And then it shows us covering that same area minus the one cadet we're losing that's going to the DOC Academy, down to one cadet. We're covering 84 hours of vacant area right now because I can't get someone to hired and to stay with us. And so it shows it under corrections deputies as well as law enforcement deputies, and we're trying to figure other avenues out and how we can have someone in that Control 1 without costing us all this overtime if we cannot come to a solution.
And just to address some of the things with some of our newer commissioners, Michael, what is our current starting wage for part-time employees in the county?
I did not bring that.
It was 14 something, like 1473 or something like that. And here's the big picture that we need to consider, is that if we bump court screeners and Control 1 up to 15 an hour, we're going over what other part-time employees are making under contract. I certainly think this is worthy of consideration, that we like the fact that there's security there and that they are doing a good job. What I'd like to see, and I can go either way on this, but what I'd really like to see is if you can carve out a piece of time with Michael and sit down and look at this and see where our threshold is for all county employees in these positions, and yet look at maybe longevity, because I know you've had some court screeners that have been there a long time. I mean, some people, and the goal is to be able to keep people and retain people, and that's a problem for everybody across all levels of private or public sector right now. So I'd like to see us figure something out to move this forward. But I think we have to be cognizant of the full picture of the county and those contracts and all part-time employees we have working for the county at this point. And I'm not quite sure I can solve that today. But if you would be willing to sit down with Michael or have a proposal for him, I'd love to see this come back before the board with something that works for everybody and move forward.
That'd be great also, but if I knew that the rest of the part-timers were getting on the average of $14.73 and ours was getting paid $12.78 and $13.01, that's a big difference already also. So I understand where you're coming from.
I'm not sure exactly what that number is.
And I don't know that was the part-timers, that's in our classification
Okay.
system. You know, the challenge that we've got is that as we move this up, that propels, puts this in ahead of a couple of grades in our employees association, different bargaining group, but it all plays hand in hand that where that it creates this cascade effect. And I don't, not to diminish the challenges that Jason and others, all the departments, that's one of the common themes, if not the most common theme, is struggling with hiring and struggling with competitive compensation. And I kind of communicated, I think at the last meeting, I hinted that we're looking at some things. It's going to take some time because of the timing of when taxable values are updated and our equalization values, as well as then when we actually receive tax revenue from the previous year for analysis purposes. But we're looking at that, and the issue becomes just that cascade effect that we come into, and I don't have a good answer at the moment.
For all departments and bargaining units countywide.
It has a ripple effect.
And I'm not sure how many other departments have part-time employees. Obviously, if you're talking about a certain level, because they're in the union and that type of thing, obviously they're also getting retirement benefits as well if they're full-time. So it's a little bit, I understand where Mr. Brown's coming from also, as well as Commissioner Jackson. I'm just trying to make sure that, worst comes to worst, it's going to be paid one way or the other, whether it's our people overtime or contract security, if you're going to keep court screeners coming for the building or not, one way or the other. I'm just putting it out there, and I can't even verify or justify or guarantee these people will stay even if they do get a paid a $15 an hour raise.
Correct.
I'm just trying to do what I can do to try to make possibly work. So I appreciate your
I'm
time.
sorry I misspoke on that. I was going off a classification scale, and we were going over some stuff that apparently that number stuck in my mind.
That's understandable.
With a lot of other things that often
Yes.
don't stick, so. But, Jason, would you be willing to sit down with Michael and look at this and see how we can move this forward?
Most definitely.
Okay, because I'd really like to see that. It's just understanding that this has as he said, a ripple effect throughout the county. We certainly appreciate the job that's being done by these people who are protecting us in the jails and in the court screeners. That goes without saying. So we need to figure something out to raise that to a level. And I agree with you that $15 an hour in today's market, I'm not sure that that's going to be the deciding factor that holds people or not. But I would like to see us do something with that. But if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind tabling this, giving you some time with Michael and bringing this back at a future date. Would that be possible?
I appreciate your time today, and that's most definitely can happen.
Okay. Is there a consensus from the board that that would be a good way to move forward with this?
Yes.
Yes, but Mr. Chairman, I would like an opportunity to speak on this.
Yes.
Thank you. I've never gotten to speak on anything about court screens before because I've never felt appropriate to do that because my wife has been one for 4 years. Today will be her last day. Not that it has any bearing on wages or anything. And she's had a really great time and learned a lot here at the course. She has enjoyed it very much. But I do know that out of all the people that started when she started, there may be just one left down there. The rest of them have all gone. And also, I do have the opportunity to experience at home what the screeners actually do up there. And it's more than just standing there watching people go by. It's a very trying job. They pay for their weapons. They pay for their CPL. And they get $13 an hour to stand there, and sometimes everybody comes through don't really agree with the policies that we have of what they have to take back out to their cars and stuff, and it can get pretty raspy down there at times. So it takes a special person to handle that situation. So I think if there's improprieties, there's no doubt there's improprieties here. We need to address it, and I think the sooner the better. I don't think it's one we want to kick down the road. If there happens to be another unit that is in the lower side of that too or something, and I think as the commissioners, we need to get our people where they belong. Obviously, we still got to maintain a budget for our county, but it's something I don't want to see kicked down the road. I strongly support it, and obviously it doesn't have nothing to do with my wallet at home because my wife's all done after today, so. I just feel that way because I have had hands-on experience what goes on there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good comments. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to bringing this up again soon. Okay. Next up on our agenda, Commissioner Doster, a review of the 1913 Pine Lake level resolution.
Thank you. I brought this up at our last meeting, the resolution of 1913. Did you wish for them to speak first, or?
No, go ahead.
And it was my understanding that you had suggested that I make a formal resolution to get it before the board, and so that I have here.
Okay. Would you like to elaborate on why the 1913 resolution, or I guess specifically, what are we trying to accomplish with review of the 1913 resolution?
What I'm looking for, I picked this because this was the start of this Pine Lake level project. This was the authorization that the board first did to take the cap off of the $10,000, I believe it is, annual expenditure for drainage that started this project in motion. This project has since changed rather dramatically. It is no longer the intent of the Drain Commission to do the project as it was first intended. It's now an entirely different project. There have been expenditures on it that have not been assessed at this point. They're getting to be rather substantial. This resolution has a couple problems in it, in that I'm not, this is a very complex case. It has involved decades of court actions. It's been to the Court of Appeals twice. I've read those cases. I have a little different opinion on them than I think that the engineers that I'd spoke to of this project have. And so what I was thinking is that, you know, people are asking us to go do something to go forward with this project, and there seem to be people on both sides. In fact, people on both sides have kind of intimated that they had a majority of the people that were in favor of this project. This project basically is entirely in my district and a little bit in Gun Plains district. It once started as a culvert for a natural outlet to Pine Lake, and then it's kind of ballooned into maybe a $6 million, $3 to $6 million to $10 million project. And I think it's time that the board perhaps authorize its own attorney to give us an opinion on what our options are and what those ramifications of those options might be. And that's kind of what I'm asking for.
Okay. That's a big request. When we first started talking about this, I thought the question was, can we rescind the 1913 resolution?
Well, that would be one of the options, yes.
Okay, so that's, and I guess we have some legal counsel here that can guide us on that.
All right.
But you're suggesting that
If I could go further on that, just since we keep on that same point, the idea of possibly rescinding it, I'm also thinking that that resolution actually didn't comply with the board's rules, because it looks like when I go over the tape and the minutes of that meeting in particular, that it was introduced in the middle of the meeting and was not on the agenda, which when that occurs under our board rules, a member of this board, if there's a violation or a presumed violation of the board rules, can ask for a hearing on that to see whether that resolution is even valid. So there is a question of even whether the thing is valid, and then if it is, then whether we would have the desire to rescind it at this point. But there are going to be ramifications for that. They've already spent money. One of the ramifications is this money that's spent. Can we still assess it? And would we have to be forced to eat the cost that's already incurred if that were to occur? And I think that that's something that our own counsel could give us guidance on.
okay. Beyond the resolution, you ask that we seek another attorney, I'm assuming you're saying outside
I
of the
would
drain.
say our attorney.
Outside of the Drain Commissioner's office to give us guidance on how to move forward. So it's rather lengthy, so I'm not sure I'm grasping the entirety of it. I know at one point, the thing I'm reading says, can we get a majority vote? So there's several things at work that I just want to be sure I'm clear before I turn it over to Drain Commissioner Dahl and legal counsel for their input.
Yeah. I had talked to Michael regarding this issue, and we looked at this motion that I have basically before the board to see whether we could require a majority of the people to vote on it, since there seems to be a lot of people on both sides claiming that they have a majority. And it was a suggestion that maybe the thing needed to be a little bit broader in order to allow an attorney to actually read the opinions and give us some viewpoint to protect our interests. So that was what I was looking at. But
Okay, so you're saying to protect our interests, because my next
Yes.
question was, it seems if people at Pine Lake, on both sides of this, would be willing to invest a little bit of money for legal counsel to tell them whether they could vote, not vote, whether Part 307 would work, if that was important to them. And I guess I have to grasp whether it's a good investment of county money in this time. If there's serious jeopardy from us, for us, then maybe so, but I'm just trying, like I said, get my brain around the whole.
well, I think it's going to involve setting a lake level, because there's been lots of talk in this that there was a lake level that was set, and that's how that they were able to have a resolution to drain it. And I don't believe that an upper level was ever set on that only a lower level was set. There was a lawsuit when the lake was very dry to allow an augmentation pump that set the level at 890.5, and that was in the 60s. And Judge Fisher reviewed that 30 years later because it was being used as a justification to then lower the lake, which is what that resolution was that 3 years ago that you passed. The first paragraph in that is using that justification. I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that the Eagle believes that there is a high level that is set on the lake. The Drain Commission has come before this board just recently with a motion that looks like it is wanting the board to, on its own motion, to set a lake level, which would then keep anybody from voting on the lake, whether they wanted this lake level. There's a lot of engineering that was done in this Fisher opinion. Tony Groves was the engineer for the county at the time. He went through and set a recommendation for what the level might possibly be, of which an awful lot of effort's been going on. I don't know why. And that level, I think, is relatively close to where the lake is at this point. The lake has come down 2 feet since 3 years ago, when this seemed to be such an issue to come, of emergency before the board. Since then, a lot of the people who have had water problems have built, I believe that there's been 100 seawalls that have been placed into effect since then. So I'm not sure if all the people that were originally for this project still are. And this change of circumstances and a change of project. The project was originally to use the natural outlet to eventually put this water through into the Gun River. And now the project is to use a abandoned gravel pit which sits very close to the lake, which is only approximately 6 acres in size, which would create a whole bunch of other problems. I just think that we need some protection.
Okay, and commissioners, this is it's an interesting situation, just because, number one, most of the drain projects are managed through the Drain Commissioner's office, and you have no input on how that works or goes. Because it's a lake assessment district, or a lake assessment project under Part 307, that it does need some approval from the county board. I know there's some resolutions out there for the township boards as well. So typically, you would not be involved in this. The Pine Lake issue, like I said, there's a lot of people in favor of the drain, and when you go back to the 19 meeting, most of the people in the auditorium were in favor of looking at how to get a drain, because the water was 4 feet higher than it is. Mother Nature's done her thing, water's 2 feet lower or more, whatever it is, close to 892, I believe, 892.5 right now. So there's not the angst that there was back in 19, but when you start a project in motion, you can't stop it. There have been funds expended on this project. I don't know what the number of that total is yet. So it is something that is at our board for consideration. But Commissioner Dahl, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to,
I'll tell you who he is in a minute.
okay.
I've been here before.
Yes. So part board education.
Yep, as always, hard copies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The first portion, well, let me introduce Joe. Joe Claney's worked, he's helped out, he works for Clark Hill,
Okay.
kind of a cohort of Doug Kelly's. He was the Deputy Drain Commissioner for Oakland County, oversaw a lot of the dams. They've got 42 lake levels in Oakland County. We have 7. So, I mean, he's well-versed in this. That's why he's coming here instead of Doug. Doug does a lot of drain work. Joe does the legal lake level stuff. He was also, he is the legal counsel for the Midland dams, which everybody knows they collapsed. He's on the task force to remedy all that good stuff. He helped on the research on the Gun Lake Dam and for the county, figuring out who owned it and all that good stuff. And he also got the inter-county board on the Little Thornapple when the other 2 counties said, we didn't do anything wrong, it's all on Berry County. He and Doug worked to bring the other 2 counties back in and say, wait a minute, this is an inter-county board, everybody pays equally, so that's a little bit of his background. What I passed out is the Inland Lakes and Streams Act, 307, which a resolution was written under. And to paraphrase, it says, anytime the drain commissioner, as a delegated authority, which anybody can be the delegated authority, we were just picked by the county many, many, many years ago to take care of that. If there's an issue, we are delegated to seek a solution. And if we're spending over $10,000 to seek a solution, we have to come to the county board to get a resolution to exceed that $10,000. Pretty simple. So that's.
On any project?
Any lake level project.
Any lake level project?
Any lake level project, because basically the county is the overseeing entity on all these. Like you said, the difference between a drain project, the drain commissioner is overseeing a lake level, the county board is the overseeing entity. So, you know, like Commissioner Doster said, we originally started out with what Progressive A&E had proposed in the 1992 to 1997 court action. The judge at that time ordered them to look at what could be an outlet for this because they had high water, which was somewhere around 892.5, I believe, was the high water at that time. LRE looked at that. They said, yes, it can be done at first. It could be, you know, we could dig a ditch through that hill. Progressive A&E had originally said it was a 65-foot hole. We found out it was only 45 foot deep, and we could put a pipe through there and let the water go to Gun River. Once we delineated the wetland on the backside of the hill, Mike Nurse from Streamside looked it all over and he said, you'll never get a permit for this project. He said the DEQ is not going to allow you to dump that water through that hill into the seeps and that creek on the other side. Too many environmental issues. So we backed away from that. That was the first thought, you know, no sense in reinventing the wheel. Then we looked at taking it to Gun River directly. We could go down Pine Road in Allegan over to Glenn Leap's property. We'd have to put in a new pipe on his property. We could get it to the ditch that would conduct it to Gun River. That is a possibility. You're looking at about 1.5 miles of somewhere between 15 and 24-inch bored pipe. We thought that's going to be really expensive because it's deep. We could put a pump system in so we didn't have to have the pipe as deep, but then you got the cost of the pumps, the building, yada, 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 driving the cost up. Third, would have to get Glenn Leap from Allegan to give us an easement, which he wasn't real keen on that. A little while later, Brent Skolton, who's phenomenal drain commissioner in Allegan County, met with Chad Mancarelli, and they found this gravel pit that's about a third of a mile away from the lake. We touched base with the property owner. He was willing to let us do soil borings and infiltration testing. The engineer said if we get the water there, it should, and I'm going to say should because we haven't tested it, it should take the water. So we applied for a permit to do that. Now, we had one permit earlier where we pumped across Doster Road into the wetland on the other side of the road. Really simple. We'd have been heroes if we'd have done this. We pumped over there, we got a DEQ permit, pumped over there because the legends are, there used to be a culvert under Doster Road, the water went over there and it equalized. Great idea. Pumped, put water over there, we had a 2-week permit, we pumped one day, the water sat there. 3 months later, the water did go down over about 3 months, and we calculated that that would take less than a 1/16 of an inch off the lake. Not 1 foot, 2 foot, anything like that. Back up a little bit to the Gun River thing. The other bigger issue with Gun River is Gun River's flooded till about August every year. Brent's been, we're maintaining it every year, taking trees out, taking sediment out, but they're flooded. So the idea of letting any water over there in the spring when people have the biggest flooding issues would be just kind of stupid on our part. So we looked at this gravel pit, the infiltration testing works, the borings work. It could be a gravity feed line that would take the water there. And so we proposed a permit. We did finally get our draft permit in November. In that permit, we're asking to be able to pump to the gravel pit for 2 weeks, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, just to make sure we don't want to put a pipe down there and find out the gravel pit takes it for 2 days and stops taking it. Or it could flood somebody out or anything else like that. That would be just stupid. So we said, okay, in the spring we'll do our pumping, 6-inch pump, roughly 1,000 gallon a minute, 2 weeks of pumping. If it takes it like we anticipate it will, then we can go look at getting hard costs and final costs of putting a pipe that would go down the side of the road and dump out into the gravel pit. I don't know as the scope of the project has ever changed. We wanted to take the high water level off. When we started this, we had a meeting in 19 with people. The lake was at 894.1. It had been up high for a little while. We had that meeting. By 2022, it had went up to 894.4 as a high spot. The legal normal level is 890.5. I mean, that's 4 foot high is really.
Low level or high level?
The normal.
Normal, okay.
It's low level. I'm
Yep.
sorry to interrupt, but it's low level.
I presented you guys with the Judge Fisher's signature of 890.5 as a normal level. Low level is 890, and that's the level the pump gets turned on at.
Okay.
As for why we asked for a revisit to the lake level, I don't think 890.5, we do have surveys, a third of the people said 890.5 is still an okay, legal, normal level, but that's, most of the people don't want that as a normal level. And we don't want an outlet structure anywhere near that because, well, this summer for 4 months, the lake has stayed at 892.6. We don't know, I mean, everybody said it's just going to keep dropping, it hasn't. So my expectation would be an outlet structure at that or just a little bit higher. The engineers, because of the surveying we've done, says the outlet structure should be at 892 because a 6-inch rain will raise that lake to 892.5, and it'll take 19 to 39 days, depending on the size of the pipe, before it gets back down to 892.
Okay, so, you have a permit to pump for 2 weeks into a gravel pit, a third of a mile down the road. Where does the water go? Are you assuming that the water in that gravel pit, if the borings come back like it sounds like they have, that's
They
just
already
gonna
did.
go into the aquifer?
Correct. The boring said 15 feet down before you hit water, and infiltration of 23 gallon, but I don't know if that's per square foot or per, I need to dig that up if you need to know exactly how much infiltration. The engineer said, yeah, this will take realistically up to a 24-inch pipe running, and it will keep up with it, which to me is a stretch, but.
Question number one is to Commissioner Doster's question. We have a resolution from 1913. Is it possible to rescind the motion once monies have been expended over $10,000?
Well, I'm going to try and answer that question, and I think you actually answered that question at the beginning, which is what about stranded costs and how do you recover those? Again, my name is Joe Colany. I'm with the law firm of Clark Hill, and I deal with a lot of different lake level issues over the years. I think it's important that you understand that unlike a drain project where the drain commissioner or drain board is overseeing the project, as you correctly indicated, Commissioner Jackson, that really the lake level statute and the case law that supports the lake level statute, Part 307, allows county boards to make policy decisions about lakes within their community. And this, the County of Berry did that back in 68, 69, and the lake level was established under the Inland Lake Level Act that later got recodified under Part 307. And then there's been some litigation since then. You do see in a lot of lake level orders typically a summer level and a winter level, and usually the maximum is the summer level that you start raising it up at a certain point in time. I've seen lake level orders, many of them. Some of them don't have a winter and summer level. Sometimes they just say, this is the level. The court makes that determination. And in fact, it looks to me that that's, from what I've been able to read, as the lake level that's been established here is at 890.1 or 890.5. 890.5, excuse me. I wrote down one before 890. 890.1. And there's been apparently no effort to maybe take another look at that, like through the court process. Under Part 307, the circuit court has continuing jurisdiction over the lake level and the process of the lake level. So if that's a problem and that needs to be addressed, there's a mechanism for doing that. Usually that requires some sort of engineering study to determine what are the fluctuations that should be understood. There was a recent case involving Higgins Lake. It's up before the Supreme Court now. It came out last March, and it caused a lot of concerns for counties, exposing county board and their delegated authority. So yes, while Jim has hired Clark Hill to assist with a number of different things, including this lake level, the reality is that the county board is the entity that is responsible for maintaining the lake level through its delegated authority, being the drain commissioner in this case. The statute does not read as if it's a may or discretionary act. It says you shall maintain the normal level. Right now, that normal level is, we just indicated, at 890.5. So when this lake in particular, my understanding is more of a kettle lake, doesn't have necessarily a natural outlet. It relies on the fluctuation of precipitation and so forth. So back when in 69 or 70, when there was a problem with the low water level, that's when the augmentation well was added to assist with increasing the level of the lake. And my understanding is like 4 or 5 months afterwards, you didn't have that problem anymore, according to the information I've been provided. Since then, there's been periodic times when that level, as indicated here, that level has exceeded significantly. And my understanding is from 2019, there was certainly an emergency of how do we deal with all this water, because we don't really have an outlet. And so the resolution that was adopted was designed to allow the Drain Commission to exceed that statutory limitation in the drain under Part 307, so that he could proceed with determining what's the best solution to this problem.
Is it rescindable?
It is rescindable.
Okay. Under state law or under case law?
Well, it's again, the Part 307 is designed, the case law makes it clear that it allows counties to make decisions in connection with lake levels, the policy decisions. And policy decision relative to your budget is that you have the ability to rescind that. Now, that doesn't mean the stranded costs go away. You got to figure out how you're going to recover those costs. There is a special assessment district, I understand, that's in place. And so there will have to be a day of review on that, of what's been expended, and it would be spread as a cost to the folks in the district. Now, you will be subject to appeals of that, because there's folks who are going to say, well, what's the benefit? So that's a different issue. That's another thing that you're going to have to deal with.
So
The bigger,
if it's rescinded, and let's just say for a number, there's $350,000 expended, that would be assessed to the lake residents of record at that point.
correct. You have to go through the proceedings under Part 307, but yes, you would set it up and spread those costs. That's how you determined before, when you adopted your resolution, the intent was that this lake level would be supported by a special assessment district.
And for our new commissioners, we have 4 new commissioners on the board. I know in talking to Jim, if the gravel pit works, you would establish a price tag for this project. At that point, you have to have a public hearing, correct? So
That's correct.
Everybody would get input into this at that point, and you could at that point make a determination if you want to go forward with the project or no, or is that?
You guys decide that.
We decide after the public hearing if you'd bring a presentation or you would bring a motion to us probably to do that. Allegan County involved in this as well? Does it have to be approved by both boards in both counties? Even though Allegan's a small part of the process?
Yep.
Township boards?
No,
Not township boards, okay.
township
Okay.
boards do not. So the process is basically that the delegated authority would prepare a computation of cost, like he would in a drain project, determine a certain percentage of contingency not to exceed, I think it's 10 or 15%. I have to look at I always have to look up what he can do for contingency, because different statutes have different requirements. And then once you have the computation of cost, you would hold a public hearing on the assessment roll and on that project cost. Subsequent to that hearing, and before anyone can appeal, the process then comes back to the Board of Commissioners for approval of the project cost and the assessment roll related to that project cost.
Okay. To Commissioner Doster's question, is there anything in the statute in 307 that allows for a roll call vote of members on the association, whether or not they want to go through with a project, or does that not matter? Is it basically up to the county board to take input and make a decision and go forward?
The latter. The county commissioners make the decision. Now, I know that some counties will take input in the form of what you described. It doesn't have any legal effect. A petition to stop the project or a petition to go forward with the project, you already have a lake level. You have an obligation to maintain that lake level, whether you're exceeding it or it's below the lake level. You have an obligation to maintain the lake level in accordance with the statute. And that comes with it great responsibility, because it comes with it with the responsibility of potential liability exposure. People who are flooded, people who, because the lake level is not being properly maintained, can provide, litigate that issue against the county, because you have a legal obligation to maintain that lake level. So the short answer is, some folks, the petitioning process is more of an informative kind of thing, to answer your question.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
If I could go forward a little bit.
Yes.
Are you saying that the normal lake level is the same as the high lake level?
No. The normal level, according to Judge Fisher's signature, is 890.5 with seasonal variations. Originally in 69, they had a low level of 890 and a high level of 891. Judge Fisher said he was just going to make it, he left the low level, which is 890, and that's when we're bound to turn the pump on if it gets below that. But he said the 890.5 was normal with seasonal variation, took off a specific high level. And I believe through Crooked Lake, we found out that the courts typically say set a normal level with variations.
See, that's part of the interpretation that I'm not so sure of. In looking at Judge Fisher's opinion on page 10, number 13 of the rulings, the court in 1969 did not set the maximum level at 890.5 with the idea that any sort of drainage system would be necessary to comply with that current order. I don't see that Fisher's ultimate decision changed that any.
So the order I'm looking at, Commissioner Doster, you might, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you on one point. It reads that this is a clarification order dated, order denying motion for new trial, clarifying previous order. Judge Fisher indicated on December 18th, 1996, that the order said the normal lake level for Pine Lake shall remain at 890.5 feet above sea level. The designated authority shall maintain that lake level unless seasonal variations in precipitation cause the lake level to exceed 890.5 feet above sea level. And then he says, except as modified here and all previous orders of the court shall remain full force and effect. So when you read that section, it is open to some interpretation by a delegated authority, unless seasonal variations and precipitation cause a lake level to exceed 890.5 feet above sea level. I would further request, if I were looking at this, I would have a difficult time understanding what that really means, because normally the normal level is the level, and then you can have seasonal variations, but there's usually a maximum or a minimum, so that there is some guidance as to how far, because at some point, variations in precipitations that cause a lake level to exceed 890.5, what does that mean? Can it go up to 894.5? You see my point?
It can.
So
That's my point as well.
yeah, so I don't necessarily, this really is troublesome to me, because at some point, the decision for 890.5 has to be based on the determination that that lake level, and as indicated in the case from 1998 that went up to the Court of Appeals, the lake level is the one that best is designed to meet the requirements of the statute, which is what meets the best health, safety, and welfare of the public. If 894.5 is causing flooding, that's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And this causes another problem, because it says here that the shall remain 890.5. So we may need to have some sort of clarification, or go back to the court to take a look at this to get further clarification. And the court may require some sort of study to determine what those fluctuations should be in that range. Because if you don't have that, it does present a problem for the drain commissioner, who's the delegated authority, as to how he's going to best manage this Kettle Lake. And obviously, in 2019, there was a lot of flooding, or concerns of overflooding, and that's what precipitated the current project. So
I guess my response would be is that Fisher wrote a 12-page opinion that is totally anathema to the two sentences that he wrote that you're quoting. I mean, I think that he wrote those specifically because of something that the Court of Appeals say in their continuing lawsuit. He put that in there so that it isn't reversed. He has no intention of changing his opinion completely 180 degrees from the 12 pages that he wrote and all of this engineering and an argument that he does prior, but, so that's why I'm wondering if we need a little further investigation into this.
Congratulations, commissioners, you are now drain experts as well, so again, Commissioner Doster, what I would love to see, because you're making some valid points, this is something that's not going away, it's gonna stay before us until it's resolved, whenever that is. But as opposed to the board taking specific action on this to spend money, I would love to see you spend some time with Joe or with the drain commissioner and figure out if there's something specific, a specific action we can do, because we've bounced around a little bit here. I don't know that rescinding a resolution and having people pay for something with no benefit is a benefit to them without having to see if this gravel pit project will work at all. Is it a $1.5 million project? Is it a $5 million project? Jim knows this, that Pine Lake residents have the right to have fear because of what happened on Crooked Lake. That a $3 or $4 million project turned into an $8-point-some million project. And, you know, understandably, I'm concerned about this as well, because if for some reason this doesn't go through and you're assessing Pine Lake residents with no benefit, it takes 8 people to sign a petition and it turns into a drain project, and all of a sudden you're expanding that drain district like what happened in the Watson drain, and costs can accelerate. So in the interest of protecting Pine Lake residents, I think it's worthwhile for maybe Mark to get his questions answered.
I'd be willing to adjourn the request so that, for further study.
Could we do that?
Yeah, sure.
You're making some good points, and you're opening my eyes to some things that I haven't seen either. So I'd like to get some clarification moving forward on this. And if you guys can spend some time together and answer some of Mark's questions, that'd be great. So, because we have some new commissioners who don't have, Mark's got some legal background, and there's a lot to this, and there's a lot to think about. But when it comes to voting on something, people might vote for a $1.5 million project, but not an $8 million project. So we can't solve that today, but there's just a lot here to think about. So I appreciate you bringing this to us and keeping the continued discussion going on this, and I'm sure we're going to see something on this again. Please involve me where possible so I can wrap my brain around this, because sometimes it's harder to learn this in a venue where I'm trying to educate myself over the Crooked Lake and Cloverdale Drain and some of the things that we've done to expedite this. So, commissioners, it's 2:29. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Joe, for coming and clarifying that. It's 2:29. We have some. It's 12:29.
I think I was here that.
One is in my Gatorade, so. But,
You're not as hungry as you thought you were.
I'm not as hungry as I was. So, does anybody need a recess before should we take a 5-minute break? You guys okay? You want to keep going?
What else is there left?
We need to decide who our road commissioner is going to do. So,
And dispatch, right?
and dispatch, and central dispatch. Are you guys okay continuing? Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Doster.
All right, thank you.
Okay. One of the last things on our agenda. Let's figure out our road commissioner appointment. So, doing these appointments for the past 8 years and seeing former Chair Geiger struggle with how to do it fairly, equitably, quickly, I sat down and talked to Michael about a ballot procedure and how to make this work smooth so every commissioner would have a voice in this, especially in a situation like this. I can't remember when I looked at a roster of interviewers and said, we have 6 fantastic candidates. I mean, literally, we have got 6 fantastic candidates. So here's how we're going to proceed with figuring out who our road commissioner is going to be. The county clerk is going to call each commissioner's name. each commissioner will announce the candidate that he or she would like. County administration is going to record the votes. If a single candidate receives 5 votes, there will be a motion to move that candidate forward to be the road commissioner. No candidate receives 5 or more votes, we'll proceed taking the top 2 or top 3 based on how that works. If it's a 4-3-1 vote, the 4 and 3 will move on and we'll have another, we'll have a revote. That process will continue until we select a candidate. So we have 6 candidates to be interviewed, or that have been interviewed: Mark Bonsignor, Philip Corson, Robert Dykstra, Jim James, Yuli Sala, and Chris Stafford. When the county clerk calls your name, please respond with the last name of the candidate that you would like to see fill that position for road commissioner, and then we'll get a report from county administration to how to move forward. Any questions on the process?
You can only support one candidate.
Vote for one candidate, please. Yes.
Are we going to be making the appointment today, or is it going to be a recommendation to
We're
the
going to make a
board?
recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So we'll select the candidate today to recommend to the Board of Commissioners.
The reason I say that, don't you have a dispatch? I know that doesn't affect road commission, I don't think, but you have a dispatch meeting on Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
The current serves until they're replaced, though.
We'll,
Yes,
okay,
I think Mark is right. Stay until they're
so
replaced.
she can still vote?
we'll
Okay,
do central dispatch next as well and see how we want to proceed with that.
okay,
So,
thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Colton. So this is where I would give a name.
Last name.
Sala.
Okay?
Campbell.
James.
Doster.
Sala.
Getty.
James?
Hatfield.
James.
Jackson. I'm sorry, I should do you last, correct? Smelker.
Monsignor.
Tunison.
James.
And now Jackson.
James.
I show 5 votes for James. Do you agree?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome. And as I said, we had some amazing candidates. That is a very hard decision to pick one out of those. I wish we could pick them all. You've got some great people there, and I hope they stay connected, and I hope we can find some other places for some of these folks to work with the county, because there are just some outstanding candidates there. So with James receiving 5 votes as a majority, the chair would entertain a motion to appoint Jim James to the County Board of Road Commissioners for a 6-year term that begins 1/24/23 and ends 12/31/28.
So moved.
So moved Hatfield. Support Smelker. Moved by Hatfield, supported by Smelker, for a motion to appoint Jim James to the County Board of Road Commissioners for a 6-year term that begins 1/24/23 and ends 12/31/28. All those in favor say aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Chair,
Aye.
I apologize.
Oops.
I need to clarify for a minute. This is a recommendation, correct?
Recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Sorry about that.
You're on my error on that.
Recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you to all of our road commissioners who interviewed today. Next up, we have central dispatch, and we can do 2 things. Kristen has been a great candidate and she's been a great steward to the 911 Central Dispatch Board, as many of you have attested to that have worked with Kristen. Ken was not able to attend today because of a health reason, so we have 2 options. If we want Madam Clerk to call the roll, we can see if there are 5 votes for Kristen. Otherwise, we can also wait until the next cow and interview another candidate.
Can we vote wait instead of either vote for Kristen or wait? Or just,
Michael, do you have an opinion on that? Can we vote can we vote for the one candidate we interviewed to see if there are 5 votes for Kristen? Okay.
If you want to go through that process, yeah.
Input from commissioners?
It seems odd that we're being asked to pick someone out when we haven't heard anything from the other party.
On the one hand, I agree with that. On the other hand, we have an incumbent that we, I think, feel has done an outstanding job, and she's served in leadership capacities. I personally can't imagine hearing anything from another candidate that would make me feel that that outweighs the service that she has provided.
Okay. Commissioner Tunison?
I would like to wait and interview the other candidate.
Okay. Commissioner Doster?
I'd say go ahead and vote.
Commissioner
Say
Calhoun?
vote.
I say vote.
Oh,
It's not a consensus, but we do have a majority of the board wishing to vote today. Is that okay? Will you guys accept that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to appoint Kristen Cove to serve on the Central Dispatch, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to serve on the Central Dispatch Board in a Citizens at Large position for a 4-year term that begins on 1/23 and expires 12/31/26. Will someone make that motion?
so moved.
Support.
Moved by Smelker, supported by Getty, to appoint Kristen Cove, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners that we appoint Kristen Cove to serve on the Central Dispatch Board in a Citizen at Large position for a 4-year term that begins 1/1/23 and expires 12/31/26. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. It's quite a meeting, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I could find my agenda. I think we are to limited public comment. If any member of the public wishes to address the board, you have 3 minutes. Please do so.
Larry Bass, Carlton Center. 2 weeks ago, when I spoke at the first public comment session, you're going to find this hard to believe, but I made a mistake.
What?
Okay, yeah.
Have we
Write
got
it
that
down.
on record?
We do. Gordon?
I was thinking, for some reason, I was thinking this was a BOC meeting, not a cow. Okay, and for that, I apologize. Cows typically don't have invocations. There's a number of us in the community, and I mean a number of us in the community, are ultra sensitive to comments made by commissioners previously about public comments and invocations. So I probably pulled the trigger a little quick on that. However, I don't see any reason why the cows don't have an invocation. I would like them to have an invocation. I see no reason why it's different than the BOCs. So I would like to see that put forward sometime and established. Thank you very much, and once again, I apologize for my statements I made 2 weeks ago.
Don't let it happen again. Is there additional public comment?
This is apparently an afternoon of apologies. I apologize for my outburst earlier. That is not appropriate and not who I am. It's a very emotional topic, but it's very disturbing sometimes to sit here and listen to some of these things that are said that are known falsehoods. I mean, people talking about the pump functioning, built in 1971. That has never run to its intended purpose, and we're supposed to rely on that as being a solution to any future low water problems that might occur. Additionally, Mr. Jackson, you made this comment yourself, and I know it's just kind of hearsay, but we hear these words about, well, half the people are for it and half are against it. And I've handed this all to you at multiple meetings. This is evidence. We are now up to 290 homes and 421 signatures, with more coming in every day. So it's so difficult to hear this thing about, oh, there's so much support for it. There isn't. I know currently there are people walking around the lake trying to get signatures for it. Good luck. Here's half the lake. 100 people on the lake wouldn't sign something that said the sun's gonna rise tomorrow. So I do not fear their petition because I know that this is what the lake wants and we get more every day. I don't understand why Mr. Dulles, he's so hell-bent on doing this thing. You know, he knows the people on the lake don't want it. And, you know, and I'm not an expert in this drain stuff, but it seems like in some ways he's violating his own policies. My understanding was he was either supposed to get someone coming to him with a petition of 2/3 of the lake owners or the commissioners voting to say that, you know, they were going to do this. It hurts your faith some when, and I understand this is not a legal document, and when I was walking around and my helpers were walking around, we always told them, this is not a legal document. This is created to be a show of support amongst our lake owners to say, we do not want this. And please, please, no one ever without serious proof say that it's half and half or it's 40-60 or whatever. It's not close, you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. We have a Pine Lake Association. They are for it because they are 2 of the 20 homes that would be affected if it went to 894 again. So they do not represent the lake. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there additional public comment? David, if you have to go.
Good afternoon? Good
Yes, it is good afternoon already.
Since it has been a long meeting, my continuation, I'm going to wait till next Tuesday to continue on with what I started to say. But what I would like to, I am wondering about is if Commissioner Doster has had time to think about the comments that were made and if he is willing to redress or give satisfaction for grievances that were done and taken by publicly apologizing for his misinformation and his downright misinterpreting and misquoting even God's scripture, and doing that, and then we can move forward. Once that is taken, apology accepted, and we move forward and work together. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there additional public comment?
Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. Sorry, my mind went blank. Normally, I don't have a problem with coming up with words to say. And perhaps it's a strategy of your guys's, I don't know, but there is a provision. If the resolution, if the issue is that the resolution for the drain district assessments and so forth was not placed on the agenda appropriately, the Open Meetings Act addresses that very clearly, and strategically you guys can decide whether to do it or not, but you guys can, without admission, re-vote on it again, and that way it will not be, it cannot be struck down for any deficiencies in the timeline of the voting on that. Perhaps you guys don't want that to happen, I don't know. But there's 3 things I can never remember, and now 4. So, have a nice day.
Welcome to old age. You look nice in the suit, by the way. Not used to that.
Don't get used to it.
Additional public comment?
Hello again, Adam Heikkila, local business owner. Going back to the first comment time, I know it was a long time ago now, but I was interrupted during that time, and I just want to make sure, because I know some of you are new on the board here. I think that it's important that, you know, when you guys have rules and say that it's not really question and answer time, you know, that you all follow the rules that we're supposed to follow. Unfortunately, the people that come, your citizens, you have to treat them like children a lot of the time, unfortunately, just in that manner. Because if you don't set rules and follow them, your children, they get unruly, right? And I know that you don't want us to get unruly, and none of us want to get unruly, but when we have contentious things that we bring to you and you don't follow your own rules, and then you have the law enforcement that sits here and comes after people that you deem to be unruly, when you yourselves tend to be unruly. And that's where I'm just saying that, not that it's been bad, but that was the start of it here today when I was interrupted by one of your members. And not one of you as another member, the chair, is supposed to address that situation. I have other boards that I go to that are far worse than, the little bit that happened here. But we just want to make sure, since you're new, we want to make sure that we have some consistency is all. It's super important. Because I'm one that gets, looked at by others that say I'm the bad guy, when it's like, well, when rules aren't being followed by others, how do you really deem who's going to be at fault when something gets out of hand? And so that is important, especially then, so I want to go, the Gamaliel comment that I made before, for some of you new members that don't know, I've mentioned that there's a foundation called the Gamaliel Foundation, and there's multiple foundations like them around the world. They've been doing work. They actually have a 30-year rolling plan that they are using to do controls all the way into our local communities here. So this is happening, and I know this because I went to their national leadership training back in 2015, and since that time, been trying to help educate and work to be in my own community to change the actions that they are working on, because they're working on removing our rights, changing our entire country to be a more socialist, a Marxist-based nation. So Gamaliel, look it up. He's a Pharisee in the Bible, if you really want the truth of who it is, Mr. Doster. And so look it up, the Gamaliel Foundation. It's one of Saul Alinsky's foundations, started out of Chicago, okay? It is Marxist, and it is the reason we have the diversity, inclusion, equity, all of the different changes that we have going on in our own community today. So look them up, ask me some questions. I'd love to talk to you about it. Thank you.
Adam, would you spell Gamaliel?
Gamaliel.
Is there additional public comment? Thank you for those of you who have joined us and stayed for the entire meeting today. It has been a long one. We promise more. Have a great day and a safe day.